Welcome back to Kings of Columbus on the podcast. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis, and this show is all about Kyle McCord. Landis, we are going to try to put Kyle McCord in context against his 2021 recruiting class, the other quarterbacks there, against recent Ohio State quarterbacks, against quarterbacks of top 25 teams right now. And we're going to kind of boil this discussion down, Landis. We're going to talk about the things around Kyle McCord. That's mostly the offensive line. We're going to talk about Kyle McCord himself. And then we're going to talk about talking about Kyle McCord and sort of like the view by fans and media and how he's being reacted to so far. I sent out a text to our tech subscribers Tuesday night, and I said, in my nearly 2 decades of covering Ohio State, like this discussion around Kyle McCord, that Ohio State is number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. They are 8-0. They have wins over 3 pretty darn good teams in Notre Dame, Penn State, and Wisconsin. But yet there are a lot of questions and some frustrations and angst around the level of quarterback play for an 8-0 team. I said that is at one of the most sort of confusing, angst-ridden topics of discussion that I can remember, because you're, for the fans, that you're like, man, I don't know if this quarterback's good enough of the 8-0 number 1 Buckeyes. You know what I mean? It's not somewhere I feel like that this program has been, at least recently.
Yeah, it feels that way for me too. I think listen, like Ohio State fans, I don't think have had to question whether or not they've had championship level play at that position for a handful of years, and now they are. So, and I don't think it's unfair to question that. So I think that's fueling a lot of it. It was also the first time in a while that there's been a true quarterback competition, and those can be fairly divisive, and people, I don't know, kind of pick sides and stick with them regardless of what the outcome of that competition is. And also too, it's hard in college football when we don't see practice and we're only left to go off of what people tell us to know if the process of picking a guy when you have a heated competition was handled the way it should have been. And then like you come out of that and the quarterback play is just something less than you're accustomed to, that probably plants more seeds of doubt in your mind or more questions, I guess. So I'm not really surprised that we're here. But the tenor of the conversation is definitely different, I think, than anything I've experienced, at least going back to when JT Barrett was here, because he was, I think, fairly polarizing at times too.
When you say you're not surprised that we're here, you and I did a big show during the quarterback competition, like before the season started, and we were kind of like, don't panic about it. There's reason to believe that they'll find an answer. Like they'll figure out a guy, that the Ohio State quarterback will be good or good enough, which actually is 2 different questions, and we'll get into that later. And I felt like we were trying to sort of like keep people away from the panic button. So when you say like we're not surprised that we're here, you're not a little bit surprised that it's not a little more settled 8 games in, given that it was a battle between basically 2 5-star guys?
I mean, I guess a little, right? I'm not shocked that we're here, because whoever the pick was to be quarterback, I did not think they were going to play to the level that we've seen here, just because they're different guys. And the dynamic of having another player who you think is good, if only because like mystery allows you to be able to do that, tends to lead quarterback discussions down this road, I think. So no, I'm not terribly surprised.
The fact that there was a competition, you think, has contributed to the ongoing discussion?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is not what we're getting. We're going to talk about the football first, then we're going to talk about the discussion around the football. We have a lot of comments from our tech subscribers. If you want to be a tech subscriber, you can sign up by sending a text to 614-662-4509 to get a 2-week free trial. This is Lisa, the mom, cardiothoracic surgery nurse practitioner, novice college football fan. So she's coming at it from a lot of different points, which is good, because kind of like who you are affects how you view this. Like cardiac surgery, you kind of need to be really ready when you are on stage. So I would like to see more progression at this point and more pocket awareness from Kyle McCord. But as fans, let's try to remain focused and positive to build up the kid's confidence, right? This is one of those discussions, Landis, where A lot of people sent texts that have a but in them, right? Or there's a comma in there. There's an and, there's an or, because it's hard to have just one opinion about this quarterback situation. This is Ryan. I was at the Purdue game and I asked a fan how they felt about Purdue quarterback Hudson Card, and he asked how I felt about Kyle. I said he's an above average quarterback. He asked how I felt about him compared to our previous quarterbacks at Ohio State. I said below average. That wraps up how I feel about him. An excellent and top tier quarterback, but below what we have had in the past decade or so. I would still take him over any quarterback the cheaters up north have had in that time frame, right? Like, get the context of how, of like, what are you comparing Kyle McCord to is such a huge part of this, isn't it?
It is. And I found myself wondering if people are comparing him more to what they see around the country or what they have seen at Ohio State, because I think those are two pretty different things. Either one, I think, leaves you wanting more, but there are degrees there that I think are impacted by which lens you choose to view him through.
This is Luke in Fort Worth. It's not even a demonstrative negative opinion of him. I also understand he will grow into something more than what he is currently. What is that? I don't know. Can we win a championship with him? Sure. But his play drastically lowers the margin for error. Against Notre Dame, he needed a superb defensive effort and the greatest last-minute drive in Ohio State history. Against Penn State, he again needed superb defense, an outstanding receiver, and good officiating. I'm just getting stuck on his limitations and failures as a sign of foreshadowing for what will cost Ohio State against either Michigan or in the playoff. Right? Like, that's how different do you think this discussion would be if they had lost to Notre Dame? Like, say everything else, say he makes the 3rd and 19 throw, but Chip Trainum is an inch short. Would this be 3 times hotter than it is now because there would be a loss?
I think more than 3 times hotter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like maybe 10 times hotter. Yeah.
This is kind of a thing that comes up a lot. This is Nick. It's simple for me. He's just not getting better on a game-to-game basis, like Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, or CJ Stroud did. At best, he is the same, if not worse than he was to start the year. His play is so erratic and his ball security is so poor. It seems like he can be a legitimate liability that loses us a game. We haven't had a situation like that at quarterback since the JT Cardale debacle in 2015. But even that was due to coaching mismanagement. We truly haven't had a liability under center since Todd Beckman, who made the national championship game. But even he led us to a national title, maybe since Joe Bauserman, although I am very aware there is a gulf between the type of talent they each have and had, right? So it's like, he's not saying McCord is Bauserman. That's using an extreme to illustrate the point, I suppose. Now I've just confused myself even more. Thanks, Doug. That's what I wanted to get to in that, because this kind of thing, reading through literally hundreds of text replies, doing a bunch of research, it helps me to talk things out. It just so happens we're going to talk it out for 90 minutes or 2 hours on a show and a podcast. I don't know those, like some of these texts, there's multiple texts where people start off one place, they get to another place, they wind up back where they started, and they are more confused by the end of their thought than they were at the beginning. And I think that is part of this. I think it's not even it's almost easier if a player is just bad, right?
Right.
Is he good or is he bad? When they're both simultaneously and maybe from play to play, they're one and then the other, that's where it really gets angsty.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes this, I think, a particularly heated conversation, because if you are a Kyle McCord believer, there is enough there for you to grab onto and use to illustrate your point and try to rally more people to your cause. Show them a couple throws from the end of the Notre Dame game. Show them the second half against Maryland, right? If you are someone who from the jump didn't want Kyle McCord to be the quarterback, there's plenty of ammo there too. Yeah. Show him the intentional grounding penalties and the fumbles and the terrible interception he threw on the first one against Wisconsin last week. So yeah, it's a nuanced conversation, perhaps one of the most nuanced conversations we've had to have in our time covering this team, because I find myself doing similar mental gymnastics when I talk about him. Like I look at numbers, I try to make points, I try to rely on what I see. Like in the back of my mind, it's like, be fair, be reasonable, be fair, be reasonable. And it's like, but this doesn't look very good right now. Like, what are we supposed to do? And then I'm left a little confused as well at times. So I get it.
This is Michael. How can he make some of the NFL type throws and then make peewee type mistakes? Too big of a range from great to bad. That range, right? His range from his best play to his worst play. I'd be hard pressed to find a wider range in my Ohio State memory and maybe in anything I've watched in college football. Right? Everyone makes a bad play every now and then, but he sort of has like multiple bad plays. But we also have to remember the 3rd and 19 throw. That's the thing. So we're not doing the discussion yet. It's like the discussion of the discussion is really part of the discussion. When I was sort of not mad, but like trying to say like, why is this reaction here? Like, it's only a reaction to the people who are like, he's terrible or he's bad. Because if he was terrible, they would have lost to Notre Dame. He wouldn't have made the 3rd and 19 throw. So we had enough like demonstrative evidence that he's not bad. That's just like factually incorrect. But he's bad sometimes. And he's good sometimes. And so like, that's the thing of this is a nuanced discussion. And I think any side that is black or white in a discussion that's all gray, that's what frustrates me. And so I'm not here to yell at fans, and I'm really not here, although I wind up doing it. I'm not here to tell fans how to think, but we want to help fans. We want to inform fans so they can come to their best conclusion. And so like, this is not we plant flags on Kings of the North every week. Can you plant a Kyle McCord flag? How could you plant a flag?
I
like
don't
Baker Mayfield planted the turf. It won't go in. It won't go in.
With no point on the end.
Bonk.
Yeah, just two flat surfaces hitting against each other. Yeah. No, I don't know how you could plant the flag legitimately. Like if you want to play devil's advocate and be a contrarian or just try to stir up some crap, then I guess you could either way. But I don't feel like I can. And honestly, I feel this is going to be a helpful exercise for me too, because I've struggled a little bit with how to analyze Kyle McCord's play at times. So I'm looking forward to getting more into it.
So I do think where you started affects where you are right now. I asked the tech subscribers, what were your expectations for Kyle McCord coming into this season? High expectations, medium expectations, low. What do you think won? High, medium, low?
Medium.
Medium. What would yours have been? What would you have said?
I would have said medium. Okay. Yeah.
I was definitely medium.
I was unsure when the season started that he would still be the starting quarterback at this point.
Medium 51%, high 47%. So it's close. Low like 2%. Okay. So it's close, right? On high and medium. If you were high, you're in a different place than if you were medium. And I don't want to be like, well, I never really, but I also didn't want to, I think it's kind of unfair, especially at quarterback, to be too strongly, I don't know about this guy before he has a chance to show anything.
Right.
So I didn't feel like, and that, like the idea of like, you're sure that it should be Brown, you're sure that it should be McCord. Again, I just don't know that we ever had enough information to be definitive about that. The idea, Ryan Day always says he wants to have options. He always says like, well, what if somebody's not good? You want to have somebody else ready. I think we've all talked about the idea of at some point they're even like miss is probably the wrong word, but it's hard to stack first round quarterbacks on top of each other for 3 decades. Right. So I was like, I would say I was pretty strongly medium, but I didn't want to doubt it too much. But I've realized this in the course of gathering texts. Part of my opinion on Kyle McCord, and if people think that I have not been critical enough of Kyle McCord, is I realize now, because I didn't expect as much as I did of Justin Fields. And I was very uncertain about CJ Stroud. I was like, Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter by the end of 2021. That was very wrong. Add it to the list of things I've been very wrong about.
Did you sell your property on Quinn Ewers Island, or do you still own it?
I'm upside down. I can't get rid of it. It like a monsoon came in, and it's like literally and figuratively underwater. So if anybody wants to take that off my hands, maybe somebody in Burnt Orange will buy it from me. But like, so that's where I was with CJ. But CJ, then we're not gonna do the whole CJ comparison yet. But like, okay, so CJ because there is like CJ's first start. Bad first half against Minnesota, good second half. Not a bad game against Oregon, but they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And he threw a pick at the end to kind of seal it. And then a bad game against Tulsa.
Yep.
And he was very open about hearing the noise, which was sort of disconcerting about like, oh man, like where's this guy's head at? So then he rests his shoulder and rests himself mentally and then comes back and rolls. I think the first 3 games with CJ were more concerning than any chunk of Kyle so far. But then CJ flipped it. Like CJ, by game 8, CJ was, I think, well past where Kyle is now. But I think the first month of CJ was worse than the first month of Kyle. So the issue is that it's this long, right? So it's like there are some CJ comparisons to 2021, but there are also some drastic differences.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing with me is like I think we talked about it after the Notre Dame game. It's like, all right, he's got this under his belt. He's ready to roll. Like here comes the similar, maybe it doesn't look exactly like the jump that CJ made when he came back and like lit up Rutgers and then rolled from there. But here comes a step forward. And I guess like statistically there was for a little bit because like the second half against Maryland was awesome and like really boosted those numbers. But just using your eyes, he is not, I don't think Kyle has taken tremendous tangible steps forward. It does more or less kind of feel the same. I don't think it's worse. Like I don't feel like he's regressed. I just kind of feel like he's the same quarterback who started against Indiana, like making kind of similar mistakes and decisions.
So then after I asked the expectations, it was, it was a little bit more medium, but basically split medium and high. How would you rate him so far? High, medium, low. What would you be your rating of Kyle so far?
My rating would be medium.
Yeah. 89% medium.
Yeah.
8% low, 3% high. So it's not like a bunch of people are rating him that his performance is bad. It's just that we were split between medium and high in expectations, and now we're almost all there on results or medium. Mm-hmm. So that's like half the fans who have come down from high to medium, right?
Yep.
So I do think that affects this. I think that's like a major part of how everybody is viewing this. Now we want to talk about like improvement, right? Do you think Kyle McCord's play will improve the rest of the season? The choices I gave Landis were yes, he'll improve a lot. Yes, he'll improve some. No, he'll stay the same. No, he might get worse. So improve a lot, improve some, stay the same, or get worse. What do you think will happen, you yourself, Bill Landis?
I think he will improve some, if only because he's going to get Emeka Egbuka back and he'll have some better stuff around him.
Improve some, wildly ran away with it. 77%. Stay the same, 16%. Improve a lot, 6%. Get worse, 1%. I am also at improve some. And I also thought, like what Ryan Day said, I wasn't seeing it, right? Ryan Day always wants to know when a quarterback makes a mistake, what did you see? Why did you do that? So the discussion, I wanted to like inside the conversation of when they sat down and went through the film on Sunday, did they spend 9 hours on the first pick or like, what did they do? And Ryan Day was sort of like, he wants it back. He wants it back. Mm-hmm. But he said Kyle is seeing it well, right? Obviously not on that play, but generally speaking, they said he's seeing it. Do you agree with that? Do you believe it?
I don't know if I believe it as sort of emphatically as Ryan Day said it. I mean, are we going to talk about like turnover worthy throws and stuff later?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I'll save that point for now. I do not. I guess I'll say that I did not agree with sort of the full-throated endorsement that Kyle McCord is seeing things well.
Okay. By the way, we are going to come to conclusions on this podcast. I came to 2 strong conclusions and then 1 conclusion based on those conclusions. So these 2 things I think are facts. And then I believe this to be the case based on those facts. So we are going to lead. This is going to lead to something. Okay. I also asked this. To me, there is a difference between good and good enough. So here's how I asked that question to tech subscribers. I called this the quarterback check. What is your level of confidence that Kyle McCord will play well the rest of this season? Then I did team check. What is your level of confidence that Kyle McCord will play well enough to give Ohio State a real chance to win the national title? I thought there's room for a big gap here. Mm-hmm. I personally would have a big gap here. There wasn't from the tech subscribers. They gave Kyle a 6.25. They gave good enough for the team to win, a 6.59. I think, to me, I might be more at like a 5 on Kyle individually and a 9 on good enough for the team to win.
Yeah, I was going to say like 4 and 8.
Yeah. So that, and I think the Kyle discussion is interesting, and we sort of touched on this in a previous pod. I think the team discussion is more to the point and more important.
Yeah, it has to be, to contextualize them anyway. Right? Like, it's not. I suppose there's a baseline level of success and efficacy you want from an Ohio State quarterback, regardless of the environment around him. But the environment around him has to, inform every conversation and thought, I think.
And so along, this is kind of like the last thing of expectations before we really start diving in on what has happened. I looked at the 13 highest ranked quarterbacks in the 247 composite in his 2021 recruiting class. Of those 13, 7 are current starters, 3 are current backups, and 3 transferred and are backups, right? So let's run through them real quick, because I do think there's a part of this, and we'll get into a little bit later, is like, did Ryan Day pick the right guy?
Yeah.
Right? That's not an unfair discussion. Number 1 was Quinn Ewers, now the starter at Texas, started at Ohio State. So, I mean, yes, he's a transfer, but the transfers were more like you transferred and like kind of got lost.
Yeah.
So
he also reclassified to that class, right?
He's a starter. Yeah, it was confusing. Went to high school, went to Columbus High School, never found the bathroom in the Woody and was like, I can't even find the bathroom here. I'm going to transfer. Number 2, Caleb Williams, started at Oklahoma, won the Heisman at USC. He's going to be the first pick of the draft. Number 3 was Sam Heward, started at Washington. Michael Penix came there, wiped out the quarterback opportunities for a couple of years. He transferred to Cal Poly, so he's a transfer. 4th, Brock Vandegrift at Georgia, got beat out by Carson Beck this year. He's a backup. 5th, J.J. McCarthy, the starter at Michigan. 6th was Kyle McCord, starter at Ohio State. 7th was Ty Thompson, the backup at Oregon, because Bo Nix came from Auburn and said, I'm going to be here and be 30 years old and be the starting quarterback. Number 8, Jake Garcia, at Miami, beaten out by Tyler Van Dyke, transferred to Mizzou, where he's the backup. Number 9, Drake May at North Carolina. Maybe he'll be the first pick in the draft, because when I said Caleb Williams will be the first pick in the draft, you gave me Landis face.
I'm glad that has a name.
You went trick-or-treating on Tuesday night. I saw it on your Instagram with you and your lovely wife and your lovely child.
Yeah, I just wore the mullet again. We didn't really go trick-or-treating. Kind of just like walked around while another child who's older than him trick-or-treated. But yeah, it was fun. It snowed. It was unbelievable. Did
you get any candy? Any Landis candy?
I got 1 piece of candy.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yep.
Number 10 is Jackson Dart. He's the starter at Ole Miss, who's a top 15 program. He started off at USC, transferred to Ole Miss, starter there. Number 11, Ty Buckner. Was at Notre Dame last year, started against Ohio State, got hurt, transferred to Alabama as number 3 in the Alabama depth chart. Now he's a transfer. Number 12 is Miller Moss. He's the backup at USC. And number 13 is Jalen Milroe, who's the starter at Alabama. So there are a couple guys in there. I guess Caleb Williams and Drake May, right, you would say are way ahead of Kyle McCord. Now, they had earlier opportunities. They're in year 2 as starters. You would probably say J.J. McCarthy is ahead. Again, he had an opportunity last year. He's in year 2 as a starter. You might say Quinn Ewers is ahead. He had an opportunity last year. He's in year 2 as a starter. But there's other guys who didn't work out either. Guys who, it's like when Michael Penix and Bo Nix get dropped on your lap, like, you know, that's where Kyle McCord was last year with C.J. Stroud, but then C.J. left. So,
yeah,
like, I don't think he's not like out of step with his recruiting class. He's not Drake May. He's not Caleb Williams. But he's not like a bust. I mean, it's not like, oh my God, if only they would have had Ty Thompson, you know, like,
right.
It'd be nice to have Drake May or Caleb Williams if you're Ohio State, but you know, you can't always compare somebody to the very best person in their cohort.
When you have that conversation with yourself, like, do you look at the guys that were maybe misevaluated in that class too? Like Shadur Sanders is in that class. Caden Salter at Liberty is having a really good year, is in that class.
I did not consider the Liberty quarterback in my thought process.
Right. Well, he was a P5 guy who trained with the Tennessee and then he transferred to Liberty. Riley Leonard was also in that class, Duke's quarterback, who was going to be like a top 50 pick in the draft, probably. Yeah.
No, Riley Leonard's good. So okay. Right. Did we laid a little foundation, we have so many good questions. Let me say this. This affected my evaluation of Kyle McCord, and then we thought we found it, and I'm not sure if we found it or not. This is Matt. It's been a struggle to accept that we just don't have a dude at quarterback for the first time in a long time. I honestly don't think McCord has a special trait. He is a solid quarterback who can absolutely lead this team to a national championship, but if they win it all, it will not be because of him. To me, the closest comparison in terms of how he makes the fan base feel when he plays is Cardale Jones. So like that trait conversation has certainly was in my head.
Yep.
And then we sort of decided, hey, he was cool under pressure against Notre Dame. That's his trait. He's cool under pressure. And then we thought maybe he's too cool. So like this, but like physical trait, like arm, leg, brain, I still am maybe uncertain about that.
I am also uncertain. I was thinking about that too, especially when I went back and looked at some of his numbers compared to like CJ Stroud and Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins, who I think all three of them, you can easily and quickly identify what their special trait or traits were. And I still don't know what that is with Kyle, because I'm with you. Like I thought it was the cool under pressure thing against Notre Dame. And I guess like pressure of the moment and like literal pressure in your face are two different things. So maybe pressure of the moment is still true. Actual pressure, football players around you while you're trying to throw the ball, he has not been very good there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still searching for that as well. And maybe he doesn't have an extra special trait the way that the guys preceding him do. Maybe he just is pretty good at a few things, which again might be good enough.
Yeah, there's a difference between pressure of the moment and pressure of the defender in your face.
Yeah.
Like pressure of the moment is what he showed against Notre Dame. Pressure of the defender in his face, we're going to get to in a second. Our guy Joseph in Atlanta said, again, is McCord better today than he was a month ago against Notre Dame? I'm not sure he is. That is like an ongoing question that you brought up. And then Reese had an interesting one, Landis. We haven't heard anything from you guys, Ryan Day or Kyle, about taking a week break to get his ankle feeling better. I think he should do something like CJ Stroud did and take a week off over the next few weeks while they aren't playing any big-time games. What do you guys think? Is this a topic worth asking Ryan Day about? Because, again, the CJ break against Akron when Kyle started in 2021 was shoulder and mind.
Mm-hmm.
To let Kyle, so Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota, to let the ankle heal and let a guy sit back, like, he doesn't want to do it because he's from New Jersey and his dad went to Rutgers and they're playing Rutgers. He doesn't want to miss this one. But could you, even if Devin Brown's not ready, could you throw out a Jebbia game to like give Kyle a reset? Because man, that worked in 21.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it on Tuesday when we were talking about the ankle and the impact on that, which Ryan Day didn't really want to talk about.
Ryan Day basically said everybody's hurt. Play through.
Right. Yeah. Like it's not September, so I don't know. Like is November the time to do that? And also, the dynamic's different because like Kyle McCord, I don't think would be in any kind of jeopardy of losing his job to Tristan Jebbia, but Devin Brown is supposedly practicing this week.
Right.
If you sat him to let him heal, and then Devin Brown played well, what do you do after that? Because there was, I guess in hindsight, there was no real chance that like Kyle McCord was going to take CJ Stroud's job in 2021, right? I thought in the moment that there was going to be, but with the benefit of hindsight, I don't think that was actually reality. It's more of a realistic conversation now, right? If they were to try to do something like that, and which probably would make them less inclined to do it.
Yeah, it's almost like there might be the fact that there might be an answer out there makes you not want to ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're 8-0 and number one in the country. So you kind of don't want to rock the boat. We're going to get to some Stetson Bennett comparisons later in 2021. Like that whole like JT Daniels, Bennett takes over. They're going to get back to JT Daniels. Like it's not completely dissimilar. So there's a particular stat. There's another particular baseline of facts. And then I have come up with the group that we should be comparing Kyle McCord to. It is a very specific group, and I think it will illuminate our discussion. So we're going to really dive. That was the preamble. It's a 29-minute preamble.
We recorded that? That was okay.
Yeah. That was like the Pixar short before you actually watch the movie. It's like, hey, there's a lamp on a desk. He's jumping around. It's like, why did the lamp jump around for 29 minutes? I want to get to the movie. It's time for the movie.
I like the volcano one. The lava.
I don't know if I love the volcano one. Like
really?
Volcanoes dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
It's too sweet for me.
Oh,
too sweet.
I
like the one. There's one where there's like a kid who's like a bao bun and his mom eats him or something.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that's that. I love Bao. So anyway, all right. When we come back, the things around Kyle McCord, there's a stat that's going to clarify everything next on Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis back on Kings of Columbus. The offensive line, Landis. A lot of texters sent in, you have to include the offensive line context in this Kyle McCord discussion. Mm-hmm. From Kyle L., context matters, and you have to consider the whole offense around Kyle. He is good for a first-year starter with a noticeable dip at offensive line compared to other starters. You can see his skill with some awesome throws, and the consistency will come with time and a better offensive line, right? So that, like, you have to have the context in this discussion is where a lot of people went. Smoky Mango says, I wish there was an option in the survey to choose where I can voice concern about McCord as a direct result of the offensive line. They are still quite poor, and it affects him directly, in my opinion. If he struggles, my guess is it's because the line fails him continuously. Let's do another one. In regards to McCord, this is Craig. I don't have someone to compare him to exactly. What I did notice is that I was very negative about him during the game on Saturday. I thought he missed a bunch of throws and made some bad decisions. After rewatching the first half, I realized he only had 3 or 4 throws that were off solely because of him. I also noticed an additional 3 to 4 bad plays that were a result of pass protection issues from the offensive line. My biggest concern is the overall offense's inconsistency. But again, that's Craig in San Diego. There's a lot of people, Landis, bringing this idea in. Somebody mentioned, Justin Zwick talking about the idea of a leaky offensive line gets in your head. How much do you think we have to consider the offensive line in this entire discussion?
Quite a bit, I think. Especially when you look at his breakdown, like under pressure and not under pressure.
Oh, that's the stat. That's the stat. Podcast is over.
Okay.
That's the stat. That's the stat.
And also, too, I'm like trying to click through this quickly, but he was under pressure more than 40% of the time against Wisconsin, which I believe is a season high. For the season, it's more like 28%, which actually in the Big Ten stacks up quite favorably compared to other quarterbacks. It's still kind of high. It's higher than CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud was 24% last year. But in that game in particular against Wisconsin, the game everyone's like, I don't think this is the guy. He was under pressure 40% of the snaps.
This was Derry who brought up Justin Zwick. I think it's been noted that Kyle seems hurried in the pocket even when pressure isn't really there. Justin Zwick shared his experience for when he had a leaky offensive line and said it caused him to rush due to being worried that his line couldn't protect. Do you think the leaky offensive line in training camp stunted Kyle's confidence and growth as a quarterback? From Derry. So
that's a good point. That's a really good point, actually.
Not even just now that when he was like learning the position and competing, it was implanted as a young QB.
Yeah, but it's probably true for Devin Brown as well. Like, if we're going to be fair, like, they were both working. Like, there were times we went to practice, we're like, how can they run plays? Because whichever guy happened to be working, I guess it was both offensive lines, for being honest, but did not seem like the quarterbacks were able to operate comfortably in much of the practice that we got to watch during camp.
All right, so his PFF rating when he's under pressure. So they have like blitz versus not blitz, and then they have like under pressure versus clean pocket. So this is about the effect. It's not did they blitz, is whether a guy was in his face, whether there's a blitz or not. All right. His rating against pressure is 27.3. Compared to, I did the top 16, the quarterbacks for the top 16 teams in the playoff rankings. That's through Oregon State. So like that was through like teams that really, I think, like would think they were still in the national title picture. Because there's one thing to be good, to be top 25. There's another thing to be like legitimately trying to win a national title. Mm-hmm. That is way last among quarterbacks of those top 16. For instance, Bo Nix's rating under pressure is 80.8. 11 of the 16 quarterbacks are 60 or higher. And then we go Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma is 59.4. DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State is 52.7. Jack Plummer at Louisville is 41.2. Sam Hartman at Notre Dame is 32.9. And Kyle McCord is 27.3. So under pressure, he's last out of 16. Among those same 16 quarterbacks, his offensive rating, his PFF offensive rating, when he's clean, is 91.5. It's fifth of those 16 quarterbacks. Now, in that group, there are 12 of the 16 that are higher than 90. So they're kind of all grouped together, but he's in that group. So when he's clean, he's kind of as good as anybody trying to win a national title. When he's pressured, he's awful.
Yeah.
And when you look at Ohio State quarterbacks, the last 10 years, the PFF stuff goes back to 2014. Like most Ohio State quarterbacks under pressure, their grade was like in the 60s or 50s. Justin Fields was best in 2020 at 69.8 when he's under pressure. Justin Fields in 2019 was 67.3. It goes down through like a lot of 50s. CJ last year was actually not great. CJ Stroud last year was 42.0.
Yep.
Cardale Jones in 2015 was 28.8. And again, Kyle McCord right now is 27.3. But again, like when he's clean, the Ohio State quarterbacks, when they're clean, the best ones are in the 90s. Right. So like Fields was in the 90s, Stroud was in the 90s, Kyle's in the 90s. Here's like a big difference, right? JT Barrett, all his years, when he was pressured, his offensive grade was in the 50s or 60s. When he was clean, his offensive grade was in the 70s or 80s. So like Kyle McCord, compared to somebody like JT Barrett, is much worse under pressure, is much better when he's clean. So it's almost just that. All the stuff we talked about, there's a wide range. He's hot and cold. It's high and low. I don't know what to think. It's high, like it's medium expectations, high expectations. Could we stop the podcast with when he has pressure in his face? He is not very good. He's bad at that right now. And when he has a clean pocket, he's a good winning quarterback, and end of story.
Probably. Yeah. I think it's potentially that cut and dry. He certainly missed some throws while not under pressure, but if the expectation is be perfect every time, then I don't really want to have that conversation. So yeah, I think that's a pretty defining line. And it makes me question a little bit like some of what they're doing with him. Like they have not done as much play action this year as I thought they would. I think it's like, I have it right here. It's 29% of his dropbacks are play action. I think potentially that number could be a little higher. And also too, I might be jumping the gun here, so I apologize, but I was looking at comparisons to past quarterbacks at Ohio State and like depth of target and the kind of throws they were making. Dwayne Haskins, for instance, 64% of his throws were within 9 yards of the line of scrimmage, including behind the line of scrimmage. 20% of his throws were behind the line of scrimmage, which is to say, like, they were doing a lot of quick stuff to get the ball out of his hand quickly. Kyle is 52%, so 12 percentage points lower than that. He's higher than Justin Fields, but I think Justin Fields, who is an excellent deep ball thrower, 1, and 2, has more escapability than maybe any Ohio State quarterback other than Braxton Miller. You're okay living in a world where you're sort of inviting that pressure to throw the ball down the field. CJ Stroud was 55%, so still more than Kyle McCord is doing it. I don't think they're doing Kyle a lot of favors with this offensive line by making him try to throw the ball down the field as much as they're doing right now. I think they could lean more into the short stuff, the quick stuff to get the ball out of his hand faster.
But don't they have to do that to take advantage of Marvin in some ways? If they were only you're okay with like most of Marvin's stuff being shorter, quick stuff?
Yeah, I think he's been really good at it this year. Like the last 2 weeks, he scored touchdowns off a mesh, like you said.
But the last 2 weeks, are those touchdowns short and quick? Because they're long developing routes that take a while for him to run all the way across the formation. I don't know. I mean, to me, right, quick stuff is RPO, quick slants, bubble screens. Like I thought they required the line to hold up on a couple of these touchdowns. Even if it weren't down the field, he still had to hold the ball a little bit.
I guess so. It's I think maybe the drop's not as deep, which impacts it. And maybe there's something too to your eyes not being down the field, like your eyes being a little. You're reading the wheel route, you're reading the underneath crossers, you're not looking down the field and sort of unaware of what's happening around you. I don't know. It's a good point. Like I think they do at times, or those crossers can require you to hold the ball a little bit longer. But I think Kyle seems to get himself in the most trouble when he starts taking drops that are too deep.
Okay.
And then like his tackles are either getting beat or like pushing people past the pocket, like into where Kyle is dropping to throw the pass.
Nathan says, I blame Ryan Day's play calling and the increasing predictability, also the offensive line, or the mid-game lulls really caused by the offensive line and not McCord. There is like a great discussion around his awareness, his pocket presence, and his ball security. This is from the 419. My biggest concern with McCord is ball security and awareness in the pocket. It seems it's non-existent. It's going into week 9. This is one area that should have been fixed, and it seems like he can't figure it out. I do think there's like another part of this, because we're going to get into like the pressure rate, how often he's under pressure compared to some past Ohio State quarterbacks. McCord is a decent quarterback. He is talented and the team follows him, but he doesn't really create or extend plays often. This is from Randy. Even his big moment drive against Notre Dame was riddled with misses. He can't afford to fumble or throw interceptions if he isn't going to make plays with his legs or create positive plays. Also, the number of intentional groundings is crazy. He kind of doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's it. I don't know that he has an understanding, and Ryan Day was talking about this, like you need to have a plan, right? And I don't know that he's very comfortable coming up with a plan when things go wrong. Mm-hmm. And athletically, he's not just going to escape, and then like brain processing, like CJ was solving problems before they happened. I don't think he's there. So I think like it sort of feels like, yeah, when you pressure him, he's not nearly as good. Listen, if you go to PFF rankings, we're talking about he's a 91 versus in the 20s for his PFF grade, clean versus pressure. Everybody has a gap. I mean, everybody does. Like all the good quarterbacks, if they're clean, they're all in the 90s. It's like it's kind of easy to play quarterback if you're clean on a good team. Mm-hmm. But it's that his 20 needs to be like a 50, right? He needs to bring that up. But I don't know that he's going to do it by himself this year with either brain or body. So it might be up to Ryan Day and the play calling to solve these problems before they happen, because that's where the real issue is. You like, that's what you're saying.
That's kind of where I am. Yeah. Which is, I mean, to go way back to like what our expectations were, the reason that there was a little bit of uncertainty in my mind as to who would ultimately be the starting quarterback was because of this, because I wasn't so sure that Kyle McCord had the playmaking / escapability chops were going to be necessary to keep this offense from getting knocked off track. And there were times earlier in the year where like he showed a little bit of it, right? Like he had the scramble against Indiana. I was like, oh, I didn't know he could do that. But then like he's done like one other time. Like he did it against Wisconsin, had like a 5-yard scramble on 3rd and 3, which is pretty
loved
good.
It. I think it's one of his 5 best plays of the year, and they smashed his leg when it happened.
Yeah, it was great. So like he does stuff occasionally that shows you maybe he can be a little more effective doing those kind of things, but not enough that I think inspires a ton of confidence, and not enough that I would take the onus off of the play calling and put it more on Kyle. I do think they have to protect him a little better with calls, protect him and the offensive line a little better with some of the calls they're making.
How often is he pressured? Again, by PFF, his pressure rate, right? We're talking about when he's pressured. So the percentage of time that he's under pressure, according to PFF, is 28.1% of the time. Of the quarterbacks of the top 16 teams in the playoff rankings, that's 8th. It's 8th of 16. In the history of Ohio State quarterbacks the last 10 years, 11 quarterbacks, because I did both Cardale and JT in 2014, that he's 8th of 11th, like on the good side. So he's like, there have been other Ohio State quarterbacks pressured at a higher rate than him, much more. Cardale in 2015 was 35.6. Justin in 2019 was 32.6. JT in 2015 was 33.9. There are actually a decent number of Ohio State quarterbacks, Landis, who are above 30, like pressured almost a third of their dropbacks. But I also think it's a product of like, it was a different offense with JT Barrett. Mm-hmm. And Justin Fields loved to hold the ball because he wanted to make plays. So that Kyle's pressure rate is lower compared to recent Ohio State quarterbacks, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot to me. I still think it's too high for what he is and what this offense is.
Yeah, I think it's, what is he compared to Dwayne and CJ?
Dwayne was 24.0, so he was pressured less. 4% less. And CJ was 23.4 last year, which was less. and 23.8 in 2021, which is less. So Kyle is 8th of 11 years. The 3 years where the quarterbacks were pressured less than Kyle's being pressured now, were the Dwayne year and the 2 CJ years.
Yeah.
Those are the quarterbacks that he needs to be compared to. Comparing him to JT and Justin Fields doesn't really get us anywhere.
It doesn't. And I think you would, this is more, it's less about what the numbers say, because I know you mentioned that CJ was not particularly good under pressure last year. He was better the year before in 2021. But weren't you just much more confident in both him and Dwayne's ability to just kind of like stand in there and make the throws that needed to be thrown,
Yes.
even when there were guys around him?
I was much more so especially late stage CJ. I just think he had a belief, and I think fans and the team had a belief that he could stand in there and do what had to be done, like whatever. And then Dwayne, they just got out of his hands.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that they wanted Dwayne standing in there, but he didn't stand in there. They got it out quick. So I think we talked about this in the preseason, like a version of what kind of offense should they run? Like, and as when I asked Ryan Day, we did a year anniversary of the death of the late great Dwayne Haskins. I did that on Buckeye Talk before I came over here. And I said, like, what's his extraordinary trait? He said, quick release.
Mm.
So, like, get it? Like, some version of the Dwayne Haskins offense might be what you're thinking, we are thinking, fans are thinking they should be working toward, and like they're not at that yet.
They are not at that yet. I'm looking now. It makes me want to see, like, even this is from the Wisconsin game. 39% of his throws were 10 yards or more beyond the line of scrimmage, or between 10 and 19, and another 14% were 20 plus. So like 45%, more, almost half of his throws were like deep down the field shots, and only 25% were short throws. 10% were behind the line of scrimmage. Like, I think it needs to be flipped to help him.
Yeah.
No screens either. Not three dropbacks that were screens. 90% of his dropbacks weren't screens.
So again, like, compared to right now, he's in the middle of the pack of how often he's pressured of like the top quarterbacks. This is a comparison we're going to lean into even more in another segment. Carson Beck, first-year starter at Georgia. That is a very fair comparison for Kyle McCord. He's a fourth-year guy, not a third-year guy, but otherwise they are a first-year starter taking over for an established winning quarterback. His pressure rate is 15.8.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost half of what Kyle McCord's is. So, and that's only Bo Nix is pressured less than Carson Beck among the top 16 teams. And that's because that's Oregon's offense. They're boom, 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 get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. Bo Nix from Oregon is great against pressure, but he also never faces pressure. But that's like offensive design. Georgia is not putting Carson Beck in the same types of situations that Ohio State is putting Kyle McCord in. And I think that's part of why you would say, who is playing better right now as a first-year starting quarterback for a team trying to win the national title? I think everybody would say Carson Beck is playing better than Kyle McCord.
Yeah. 58% of Carson Beck's attempts are 9 yards or closer, and 27% of his attempts are screens.
Scott asked the question and help us lead us here in the Kyle McCord discussion. Please contextualize what impact this offensive line is having on the quarterback. I would assume Kyle is facing a higher percentage of pressure than any of the other day quarterbacks. So that's a good thought, Scott. And thanks for getting us to look that up. This is Blake. An honest assessment with QB play is McCord is doing okay. This maybe is the worst Ohio State line I've seen. With that being said, the play calling needs to adjust to his strengths. Let him get the ball out quick. Also, McCord has to have better ball security. So Blake is on the same page here with you, Landis. Before we move on to kind of talking more specifically about Kyle and not the line around him and not how Ryan Day is using him, do you think this will happen? If like one of these things, if we could have a podcast about it, Ryan Day has 10 times the amount of information we have and 100 times the amount of expertise. Do you think he could reach the same conclusion and adjust how they call stuff?
Yeah, I do. Like, to the point we were talking about earlier this week, like, I do feel like they've run like the mesh concept a little more. We saw the quick RPO, the Carnell Tate. Like, we saw, I guess, the check down to Travion were a really quick game. Those were deep shots and then check it down. So that's a little different, but maybe. not like a wholesale change, not like back to the 2018, I don't think, passing attack, but perhaps the closest thing we've seen to that since then, because they've been a more vertical offense the last few years.
All right. So the first big conclusion, I said there are two conclusions. The first is his PFF rating is 27.3 when he's under pressure, and that needs to be addressed. When we come back, we'll get more specific on Kyle McCord and the second big conclusion to draw next on Kings of Columbus. All right, let's talk more specifically about Kyle McCord himself. And I looked up all 25 starting quarterbacks for the teams who were ranked in the college football playoff rankings. Do you want to guess how many of those 25 have started at least 30 games in their careers?
13.
10. Do you want to guess the next group that started between 17 and 29 games in their careers?
7.
9. So 19. So Kansas kind of has two quarterbacks, Jason Bean and Jalen Daniels. So I counted both those guys. So it's 26 quarterbacks. 19 of them have made at least 17 career starts. So if you have 30 career starts or more, you're like a third-year starter minimum. If you have 17 starts or more, this is a second-year starter minimum. There are only 7 quarterbacks on the top 25 teams who are first-year starters. Kyle McCord has 9 starts. Carson Beck at Georgia has 8. Drew Allar at Penn State has 8. Jalen Milroe at Alabama has 8. The Air Force quarterback, which is Zach Larimore, who's kind of doing like a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's not difficult, and credit to Air Force. He has 8 starts. What's the Utah guy's name? Barnes? Blake Barnes?
Bryson Barnes, the pig farmer. Yeah.
They're like on quarterback 9, and everybody's hurt, and he's made 5 starts, and they're winning with miracles on defense. So it's also not the same kind of thing. And then Ethan Garbers at UCLA has made 4 starts, but he replaced a true freshman. Mm-hmm. So like and Jalen Milroe at Alabama, like started the year, kind of helped them lose the Texas game, got benched. And then when he got benched, the other 2 guys were so much worse than him that he got the job back. So I do think this is a kind of huge part of the discussion and we knew it coming into the season. It's why I was so intrigued by this college football season, that the very best programs were starting new guys and a bunch of sort of second tier programs had super experienced quarterbacks. And so I just think like when we're comparing Kyle McCord and his 8 starts, Bo Nix at Oregon has 55 career starts. Sam Hartman at Notre Dame has 54 career starts. Jaden Daniels at LSU, 51. Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma, 45. Michael Pratt at Tulane, 39. Michael Penix at Washington, 38. DJ Uyunglele at Oregon State, 36. Jordan Travis at Florida State, 35. Jack Plummer at Louisville, 33. And Caleb Williams at USC, 30. We have to keep that in mind, because the other part of this is, of the 10 guys in the top 25 who've made at least 30 career starts, 9 of the 10 are transfers, and 8 of those 9 had huge careers at their first stops. So you know what you would take Kyle McCord over? First-year starter Bo Nix at Auburn. You know who you would take Kyle McCord over? First-year starter Michael Penix at Indiana. You know who would take Kyle McCord over? First-year Wake Forest starter Sam Hartman. First-year Arizona State starter Jaden Daniels. Like all of that. But these programs, they've got other programs dealt with the bumps, and they got a finished product. The portal it's totally affecting college football. We know that. But I still think at the top programs, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, I don't think they want to get the Arizona State transfer quarterback in year 5 to be their quarterback. I think they want to recruit and develop 5-star high school guys. And then this is part of that process. But you can look at Bo Nix in year 6 and be like, man, wouldn't it be nice if Ohio State had Bo Nix? And it's like, yeah, but would you want Ohio State to have Bo Nix? It's a very interesting new wrinkle in college football.
What I wonder what the answer to that is. And I guess maybe it's a little unfair to like of that question of Ohio State fans. What, like, now that you're going through it, I guess, what would you prefer? Would you prefer Ohio State had like looked at a transfer quarterback to potentially bring in this year, knowing that like you had to replace CJ Stroud, you didn't have any experience on your roster. It was a little bit of a crapshoot, even if the recruiting rankings would inspire some confidence. What would you prefer? Because you're seeing a lot of teams have success with transfer quarterbacks,
but not teams like Ohio State. Not
well,
the
they
top
haven't
tier.
tried. They haven't tried.
But the top tier hasn't tried. The top tier hasn't gone there. The second tier has. Bama went with Tyler Buckner, desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And then that didn't work. Georgia hasn't gone there. Michigan hasn't gone there. Clemson hasn't gone there. They used to be in the top tier. Ohio State hasn't gone there. Like the very, very elite, right? I can remember, like, I guess it was the transition when I wasn't sure about when Justin Fields left and I wasn't sure about CJ Stroud in year 2 as a first-year starter. I can remember saying, I don't know, maybe a portal guy. You know who my portal guy was for Ohio State that year? That I was like, go get this guy? Brock Purdy from Iowa State. I was like, oh, throw a name out, right? But is that because once you're in that business, aren't you in that business?
Yeah, that's the danger of it is once you get on, can you get off? Because I don't know that you can. That's like when we like on Kings of the North when I talk about Wisconsin. Like that's what worries me about their build there. It's like you tried the quick fix with Tanner Mordecai, didn't really work out. So like, what are you going to do now?
And not only all these guys, so 11 of the 25 starting quarterbacks for the top 25 teams are 5th or 6th year guys. They're super old. Jordan Travis at Florida State's in his 6th year. Of course, Florida State might win the national championship. Michael Penix is in his 6th year. Jack Plummer at Louisville is in his 6th year. Bo Nix is in year 5. Joe Milton at Tennessee is in year 6. Like they don't have bumps. They don't have bumps, but so don't ask the fans. You answer. Do you think, not about what you want. You're an analyst. Analyze. Do you think Ohio State should be in the market for the next Michael Penix, next Bo Nix, next Jaden Daniels, next Sam Hartman? Is that how they should go about quarterbacking?
No, I don't think so, because while those guys are all having very good seasons, like I still find myself questioning whether or not they have national championship ceilings. Like I would feel more confident in my program's ability to consistently find quarterbacks with national championship ceilings if they did it by high school recruiting and development, especially at a place like Ohio State, which is going to attract the best high school quarterbacks in the country every year. I just think like there's variance in both, but I think there's much more variance in relying on the transfer market every year.
So it used to be that everybody went through this. This was the norm. But now there are other programs who Ohio State is competing with that are not going through this. But I don't think that means that if you're one of the top 5 programs in the country, you want to start chasing that. I don't. Man, I think if you had brought in, so you have a Devin Brown, Kyle McCord quarterback battle, and you bring in a transfer on top of that, I just think you would have lost somebody else. And now I just think boy, oh boy, I don't know. Like they could have had Sam Hartman, right? If you told Sam Hartman, hey, come to Ohio State, Notre Dame, you probably could have made that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like and we talked a lot about Sam Hartman before the Notre Dame game. I thought Sam Hartman was really good. You were a little more skeptical, but I don't know that any Ohio State, you think Ohio State fans came out of that game saying, man, I wish Ohio State had Sam Hartman instead of Kyle McCord right now? If they could trade right now, would you trade?
I don't think so. No. Yeah.
So it's like, would you trade for Michael Penix? Yeah. I mean, yeah. You wouldn't trade for Michael Penix of Indiana, but you trade for this one, I guess. But I mean, like that's not possible. So it's so stark that I just really, I think people know it, but I thought it was worth a reminder. No?
Yeah, but and two, isn't the conversation like, would you take Michael Penix right now over what you have? Like, yeah, I think you would. But my perspective on that would be like, well, maybe we're good enough now, and then next year we're going to be better than whatever Michael Penix is now. I think you can convince yourself of that. And also, there's no guarantee that the replacement for Michael Penix is also going to fall to you through the portal. Like it's just a dangerous game when I think you do that.
Somebody asked if they heard you say a "we" in reference to Ohio State for like the first time ever. And you just did it there. And I want to make it clear to people that like when either of us does that, it is us climbing inside the minds of Ohio State. If we were Ohio State, if you're Ryan Day, now I'm Bill Landis being Ryan Day. We don't want, it's not you, Bill Landis, sitting in your house believing that you are part of Ohio State. You aren't actually weeing them. It's a hypothetical we.
It's yes, I suppose. Yeah, I don't.
You suppose it is? Oh, was it a real we?
No, I don't give it that much thought. I find it funny when reporters discuss the team as a we, I guess.
I find it not funny. I find it worrying.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. So like,
you're not doing that.
I'm not. No, I'm not doing that. No.
Yeah. He has a left knee. He has a right knee. He has a high knee, but he doesn't have an Ohio State we. So that's where Landis is. Just to be clear. I mean, and there are other shows, there are other places that are set up to have a we. That's fine. We're not set up for we. There's no we's here. So anyway, that's what it's a hypothetical we. That's the only we that exists.
I'm speaking as like from the perspective of an Ohio State fan is when I do that. But I'm not making a conscious decision to do it one way or the other. Maybe I should. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, it is reasonable to compare Kyle McCord to CJ Stroud and Justin Fields, right? Like, is this, and it's still even in year one, and it's still even not perfect, because Justin Fields did play a little bit at Georgia, which maybe put him ahead a little bit. But then also he showed up in January and they were like, hey, you're going to be the starting quarterback. Learn all this stuff. So that actually put him behind a little bit. But he then was Ohio State starter in his second year in college. CJ Stroud was Ohio State starter in his second year at college. Kyle McCord is Ohio State starter in his third year at college. So when we make statistical comparisons between year one of CJ Stroud starting, year one of Justin Fields starting, year one of Kyle McCord starting, all of that is pretty much fair, right? And maybe even Kyle would have an edge because he's a third year guy. So that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But the only then thing that we would be holding back on this is that maybe our expectation. This is now we go back to expectations, where our expectations for Kyle were like slightly lower than this. Like slightly lower than CJ and Justin. Like, would you say that was fair, your expectations?
Yeah. Yes. Like Justin was, depending on who you talk to, one of the best quarterback prospects we had seen in like a decade.
Yeah.
And CJ, I just think like you heard enough about how good CJ was looking in the build up to him becoming the starter that you were inspired or encouraged by that, and in a way that I don't think we heard that about Kyle. Yeah.
Okay. So that is it's both like reasonable, but also we have to understand sort of who we're talking about when we do that kind of thing.
Yeah. CJ also had the mystique of the recruiting rise too, like to make the jump that he made. Yeah,
he did. We had kind of talked about the idea of like, again, you're talking about maybe a shorter passing game. This has come up, be a game manager for Kyle. This is Brandon. I feel like Kyle lacks the small things that elite quarterbacks have: pocket presence, anticipation when the receiver isn't open, quick read. McCord could really look elite if he just made good decisions. He doesn't have to be a playmaker because he has them. Make the right throw and don't turn it over. Game managers can win you titles and look elite when you get the ball to the guys who make plays. I sort of tried to ask Ryan Day, like, are you thinking about things differently? Because, you know, they've been scoring in the mid 40s per game in the Ryan Day era. Now they're scoring like 33 points a game. But the last 3 years at Ohio State, they were giving up points in the mid 20s. Now they're giving up 10 a game. It wasn't about the quarterback being a game manager, but it was about maybe the offense being different. And he kind of didn't go there. He's like, no, we're still trying to score every possession.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was comfortable putting that label on his offense. He doesn't want them to be viewed that way.
No. It's one of those things. Maybe he doesn't want to say it and they'll actually just do it. It's one of those things, like they are averaging 10 points per game fewer. So whether that's by accident or on purpose, like it's kind of happening already. But is it just against it? Is he just not going to say it to like give stuff away? Does he think that that's, I don't know, giving in or giving up? Does he just want to be more aggressive than that? Like, why wouldn't he give a possible nod to that idea?
For the same reason that Jim Knowles won't give a possible nod to being bend but don't break. He doesn't like the way it sounds, even if it's true.
Okay. Okay. So again, like if we get to a short passing game thing, that is a little bit of more of a game manager conversation. Get it out, get it to Marvin and Mecca and Trey and see what happens. This is Will. Kyle McCord doesn't remind me of any of the recent quarterbacks in the last 5 years or so. He reminds me of a game manager, Stetson Bennett, like quarterback, although I believe his ceiling is higher. We're going to get the more Stetson Bennett. I can't believe it. I can't believe we're getting to Stetson Bennett stuff. Here's another Stetson.
Don't
Bennett.
act like you're put out by it. You can't wait to do your impression.
I know. I kind of can't wait. There's like when we get to the discussion about the discussion, I have to have a mea culpa on a couple things. This is from Joshua. I told my friend before Wisconsin, Kyle reminds me of Stetson Bennett, his first championship year. They never won a game because of Stetson Bennett, you know? Fortunately for them, they also didn't lose a gotta-have-it game because of him. In all reality, if Kyle takes care of the football, we will have a great shot to go toe-to-toe against anybody in the country. Bobby Hoying comparison. This is from Dave. Kyle McCord reminds me of Bobby Hoying. Hoying, as I remember, could make some great throws, but could also make you scratch your head in puzzlement for some of the mistakes, as some of us old dudes remember. Hoying's senior year, he finished with a 62% completion rate, 29 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Seems Kyle is headed for similar stats. I can't speak authoritatively about Bobby Hoying, but I'm here for anybody who wants to make Ohio State comparisons. Craig Krenzel has come up a few times. This is Scott. Well, Kyle seems more like Craig Krenzel to me. Maybe playing like 2002 is okay, but he is a good quarterback, but not showing the talent compared to the last 10 or 12 years. We have been spoiled by CJ and Justin. So, like, I do think, like, talking about being a game manager, talking about referencing winning Ohio State quarterbacks, you know, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's healthy if fans get to that. When you look at the first 8 starts for Fields, McCord, and Stroud, McCord and Fields were 8-0. Stroud was 7-1. CJ had a 67% completion percentage. Kyle's at 64%. Fields was at 69%. CJ 25-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Kyle's 14-3. Justin's 24-1. And CJ threw for a lot more yards. Justin threw for fewer, but also was more of a threat with his legs. So they're both more explosive, right? They both are more explosive, I think, that this time that Kyle than what Kyle is right now. But I think this can be healthy, Landis, if there are some winning Ohio State quarterbacks, whether it's Hoying, whether it's Krenzel, whether it's JT Barrett, that Ohio State fans can point to and say there is a way to win with a quarterback playing like this.
Yeah, and that goes back to I think what we were talking about earlier, like the context of the team, the environment that the quarterback is in. Like, so those guys you mentioned were on solid all around teams. Like, and Justin Fields was certainly in 2019. That's maybe not the best comparison, but like CJ had to be something almost otherworldly for Ohio State to win the amount of games it won with him at quarterback. And you don't need that from Kyle. You didn't need that from Craig Krenzel to win a national championship. So it's fine to, I think, want more, expect more, but I also think it's probably fair to consider the environment and what exactly the team needs out of that player to win games, to win championships. And even with that, maybe Kyle is still coming up a little short. Like I'd listen to that argument too. I'm not saying that he's definitely there, but I think that's the more worthwhile conversation at the moment. Not is he as good as we think an Ohio State quarterback should be and as good as the best ones we have seen. Is he good enough for this team to win? I think is a more worthwhile conversation.
This is a text from Race. McCord is much more streaky. He'll be accurate and then miss throws. I'm willing to give him time to grow into the role, but I'm nervous about his lack of ball security. It seems like every other sack is a fumble. Also, the interception at the goal line seemed to be a step back. It's going to be tough sledding with him versus Michigan and other top 10 teams, but he's good enough to win us games, provided that he takes care of the rock. I know these guys sit and learn behind the starter, but nothing compares to game reps. I wonder if Day regrets not getting these guys more battle tested and blowouts while running the actual offense. I know I'm with you guys in regards to that. I like I was certainly stuck on that for a while last year at Landis. Like, why aren't they letting Kyle McCord get like real game reps and get in the game and run the offense for a drive or two? I don't know. Like, are we at the point where I don't know that it's proof, but it's like, oh yeah, maybe that would have been nice for him to work out some stuff or just have another couple games under his belt? Or is it like, it wouldn't matter by now?
I guess by this point, maybe it wouldn't matter. Maybe that's a moot point by 8 games into a guy's first season as a starter. But yeah, I find it to be mismanagement of the position that they don't let the backup quarterbacks play more.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's frustrating about it is like, when you get to September of the following year, it's like, well, he stopped playing well because he hasn't played a lot. It's like, well, you had this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity to play him last year, and you didn't do it. So like, whose fault is it that he hasn't played enough? Whose fault is it he doesn't have the experience to be hitting the ground running a little better than he has been? So yeah, I think that's part of the conversation. Maybe it's more apt at the beginning of the year than it is now, but I think development is development. And Kyle had the start as a freshman 2 years ago, right? That's the most development I think a quarterback has had under Ryan Day prior to becoming a starter. But there were opportunities for him to do more that I don't think we're always taking advantage of.
This is from Jeffy P. My main beef is panic in the pocket, leading to fumbles and grounding calls. More pocket presence is needed. I do feel like that is the kind of thing that I feel like the more you play, like you just get used to the speed of the game, and like maybe it could have been helpful. This is Alex. I think where I'm at with McCord is that he has obvious elite arm talent. You see it multiple times a game. Best example being 3rd and 19 against Notre Dame. His issues come down to poor decisions at times, fixable, and sloppy missed throws, fixable. I'm optimistic he can right the ship going forward, or at least improve some. All right, so I want to get to like what I think his cohort is. And I think this is the reasonable group to compare him to. I think the people right now that it just doesn't make sense to compare him to Bo Nix and Michael Penix and Jordan Travis and then J.J. McCarthy even. Here's my comparison. Jalen Milroe at Alabama right now, first-year starter. Carson Beck at Georgia right now, first-year starter. Drew Allar at Penn State right now, first-year starter. J.J. McCarthy last year at Michigan, first-year starter. Stetson Bennett in 2021 at Georgia, first-year starter. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
PFF offensive grades for those guys. Carson Beck this year, 90.7. Jalen Milroe this year, 88.3. Drew Allar this year, 86. Stetson Bennett in 2021, 84. J.J. McCarthy last year, 77.7. Kyle McCord this year, 73.8. So in this cohort, he's last. Now, Drew Allar is 13 points, 12 points higher than Kyle McCord this year. Are there any Ohio State fans who would want to trade Kyle McCord for Drew Allar right now? Probably not, right?
No. Yeah.
So it's not the end all be all. Touchdown to interception ratio, his 14-3 is pretty good, actually, compared to a lot of those other people. Yards per attempt, Drew Allar is 6.5, which is like really low. We've talked about that a lot. He's around the range of everybody else. Kyle McCord is 9.1 yards per attempt. Jalen Milroe at Alabama is 10.7. Carson Beck is 9.4. J.J. McCarthy last year was 8.4. Stetson Bennett in 2021 was 9.9. So all kind of similar there. We talked about ADOT, which is average depth of target. Again, Drew Allar is really low. Kyle McCord's in the range with all the other guys. I do think this is valuable. PFF has I think it's worthwhile stats. Big time throws versus turnover worthy plays. So your percentage of your dropbacks where you have that, he is 4.8 big time throws. Like 4.8 of his dropbacks are big time throws. 4.1 are turnover worthy plays. That's not great. Stetson Bennett in 2021 was 5.5 to 3.5. J.J. McCarthy last year was 5.5 to 3.4. Drew Allar this year is 3.0. That's not very many big time throws to 1.7. He doesn't really turn it over. Let's see. Carson Beck this year is 3.2 to 1.7. And Jalen Milroe this year is 10.5, which is a tremendous number of big-time throws, to 3.7. So the bottom line is he's not making as many big-time throws as a guy like Jalen Milroe, but he's also not keeping the ball safe guys like Carson Beck and Drew Allar. When your big-time throw to turnover-worthy play ratio is nearly 1-to-1, that's bad.
Yeah.
And just like by comparison, the Ohio State quarterbacks the previous 4 years, 2 years of CJ, 2 years of Justin Fields. CJ was 7.0 to 3.6, basically double. 5.9 to 2.5, more than double. Justin Fields was 7.8. That's a lot of big time throws to 2.3. And in 2019, Justin Fields was 8.7 to 2.4. So the other thing here is he's not making enough big time plays for the amount of turnover worthy plays he's committing. So he's got to go one way or the other. Either like let it rip and make some big throws like Justin and CJ did and Jalen Milroe, or buckle it down and don't turn it over. Don't put it at risk to turn it over like Drew Allar and Carson Beck are doing. That I also think is part of this.
Yeah, I looked up I didn't look up the comparisons to that peer group that you established, but I think that is a good peer group. I looked up the Ohio State quarterbacks, and I found those numbers to be pretty damning when comparing Kyle to those guys. Also, nationally this year, he's like number 41 in big time throws, just total number of big time throws. He's number 33 in turnover worthy plays. So there are guys that have far more turnover worthy plays than he does, but maybe not the guys in his peer group. That's more like guys who are on bad teams and under duress all the time have a higher number of those kinds of plays. But I think that gets back to the type of throws that he's being asked to make. And in my opinion, I think his intermediate throws, which is like between 10 and 19, is where all of his interceptions have come into play. I don't know if his turnover worthy throws are higher in that area as well. Yeah. So he has on turnover worthy throws. This doesn't quite add up. Oh, yes, it does. None behind the line of scrimmage, none on short, 6 on medium. Like, there's an uptick there. His highest percentage of turnover worthy throws come on throws in the middle of the field or in the intermediate area, 10 to 19 yards. And that is, in terms of percentage of his overall throws, that ranks second behind short. So like he's being asked to do them a fair amount, and he hasn't been particularly good at them this year. So yeah, I think that breakdown needs to look more, I think, like it looked with Dwayne Haskins, which was a lot of short stuff and then the occasional deep ball. Because I do think Kyle has a strong arm to throw that deep ball. I just don't know that if he has the anticipation, touch, feel to throw the ball in the intermediate area of the field, where Ryan Day likes to throw it because it's hard to defend. Like there's levels of the defense. You want to get it like behind the linebackers, in front of the safeties, that kind of stuff. Like those are tough throws. I just don't think Kyle's very good at them right now.
I felt like in 19, Justin Fields didn't throw the ball in the middle of the field at all at the beginning. And then like he started getting to that. And it's like, okay, that's like the next step. And it feels like maybe they're already kind of asking Kyle to do those things. Mm-hmm. So like, this is like my conclusion of my two conclusions. So number one was he's terrible under pressure.
Yep.
Adjust to that. Number two was he is quite inexperienced compared to a lot of other quarterbacks in the top 25. So keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. And then my final conclusion is I think in this cohort, which is the fair group to compare him to, his PFF quarter overall ranking offensively among quarterbacks who are kind of playing is 66th in the country. JJ McCarthy last year was 50th in the country. Stetson Bennett in 2020 was 34th in the country. I think they can win a national title or compete very strongly for it if he is like their 2021 Stetson Bennett or their JJ McCarthy last year. But he's not quite that yet.
Yep.
I think he has to improve some, which is what the most of the Texans voted for. They think he'll improve some. That's what you and I think. I think that improvement is cutting down on the turnover-worthy plays and getting to a Bennett McCarthy level. And if he does that, they've got a shot. So that's my conclusion based off the conclusions.
Yeah, I agree with them largely. I guess my question to you would be, so 2021 Stetson Bennett and 2021 JJ McCarthy had a measure.
2022 JJ McCarthy.
Sorry, 2022 JJ McCarthy had a measure of athleticism.
Yep.
That they utilize at the position that Kyle does not have.
Correct.
How do you? So that to me tells me like, okay, yeah. I mean that's fair, I guess. But it's like they had a playmaking element.
They did
that Kyle doesn't have.
Correct. So he really has to not make turnover worthy plays.
Yeah.
So it's more like a production discussion than a play style comparison, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is Stetson Bennett in 2021 had the best college football defense that people had seen in a decade, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And
JJ McCarthy last year had an awesome run game with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't asked to be that. They had incredible support. Just do enough. So then it comes to the conclusion, does this Ohio State team have something like that? Like the Georgia defense, like the Michigan run game? And I think I would argue with this defense, not as good as Georgia 2021, but very good. And with Marvin Harrison, and then throw in some Emeka Egbuka and TreVeyon Henderson, I do believe this quarterback could be supported in a similar way that Georgia had it in 21 and Michigan had it in 22, that gave those teams chances to win national titles. So I guess what we're leading Ohio State fans toward is, this is your cohort. It's not Justin Fields and CJ Stroud. It's not Bo Nix and Jordan Travis and Michael Penix and current year JJ McCarthy. It's 21 Stetson Bennett and 22 JJ McCarthy. And can you get there? And then we can have a better discussion some other time, maybe, or we'll have it another day about, well, should Ohio State be operating that way? I think there's what you would like it to be and what is. I feel like this is what is.
Yeah.
So should they have recruited somebody else? Should they develop the quarterbacks better? Should they have played Kyle McCord more last year? Why is not, those aren't unreasonable discussions, but this is the real discussion 8 games in. And I do think they can get there. I think if he stays the same, that's not good enough. But I think some improvement, not a lot of improvement, some. Take a shot.
And you think they can get there? Like 8 games, 4 regular season games left, plus whatever comes after that. You think that's enough time to take a little bit of a step forward?
And to me, the step forward is cut down on the turnover-worthy plays. That's the step. Mm-hmm. Don't make the throw that led to the first pick against Wisconsin.
Right.
That might be the only step. And chill out with like the fumble against Penn State that was wiped out by like those kind of things. You know, the groundings aren't great either, but it's like, don't fumble when you're getting sacked and don't throw into double coverage. And if you improve there, if you're Kyle McCord, then I think they have a shot for sure.
Yeah, and I think that is like the thing that Ryan Day talked about, like have a plan that you mentioned earlier. I think it's just that, right? Like formulate a better plan.
Yeah.
Like know when it's time. Know where you need to get to throw the ball away so that it's not intentional grounding. Know when to cut your losses and tuck that ball in so that you're not fumbling when you get sacked.
And it's really it's not physical.
Yeah.
It's mental, which means I think it's easier to get there because the guy's been around.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's smart. I mean, I don't think anybody questions like, can he get there with the processing and the understanding of the game? It's just like, okay, it's okay, right? I think it's emotional and it's mental. So, all right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the discussion of the discussion. We still got Whatcha and all that stuff coming next on Kings of Columbus. All right, Landis. So I want to have some discussion about the discussion. Like the vibes around Kyle McCord, is there too much negativity sort of around this discussion about the level of quarterback play this year? Do you think this was the question. What is your vibe on the fan reaction to the quarterback situation right now? The choices that I gave the texters were fans are being too optimistic about McCord. Like, hey, like everything is going to be okay, but like that's not actually the case. You're too optimistic. Fans are handling it just right, or fans are being too negative about McCord. What do you think won the texture survey, Landis?
Too negative.
It's too negative. 2/3. 65% it's too negative. 32% just right. 3% too optimistic. I had mentioned on a previous podcast about Zach Smith has referenced him as Honda McCord, and I did send Zach a message, and I did not hear back from him. So we're going to have our discussion about like this vibe here. There's certainly, and it's one of these things. I think we've heard from people who think we're too negative, and we've heard from people who think we aren't critical enough. Mm-hmm. This is from Sean. I'm trying to be patient with you guys as I've been a longtime listener of your previous shows, but it seems like since you all consolidated, you've become Ohio State apologists, and it sucks. If 4-6 with A and B or Buckeye talk were still a thing, I'd be hearing critical evaluations of McCord and this offense. I'd be hearing Doug say that this quarterback isn't good enough and that the standard is national championship level, which McCord is clearly not. Instead, every episode is essentially a mix of you guys and guests arrogantly saying fans are dumb for being critical of this team. It's giving rise to shows like Zach Smith, which frankly I've started listening to more frequently than yours, which is surprising. It's too bad, and man, I wish Bill and Ari were doing their thing and Doug was still on Buckeye Talk. Just some feedback. So, We appreciate that kind of feedback. We're not going to shy away from it. All I've done my whole career is say and write what I think. So I never say anything other than what I think. Why would I do it? I'm wrong enough on my own with what I actually think. Why would I say something I don't think and risk being wrong? I will say that I think I have evolved in how I talk about things. Maybe I'm getting soft in my old age, but two things happened. One is I was very suspect about CJ Stroud when he started, right? I was really like, I don't know if this is it. When Kyle started against Akron, I was like, man, if Kyle shows something here, I don't know, man. And man, I think Quinn Ewers might be the answer here. And then CJ turned into CJ very much by the middle of that first year and by year two. And then you get to know CJ a little bit, and he's just the smartest, most dedicated guy you would want to meet. And I was very much a fan of his play by the end of his career. And I think people know that from the way I talked to him and about him and talked about his processing and his brain and everything. Mm-hmm. So that experience for me, I think, Landis, has led me a little bit of like, all right, like that, don't overreact early in a quarterback's career. Right.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I very much in the last couple of years, and it's really what I wanted us to do on Kings of the North, is I want fans to enjoy their team. College football is supposed to be fun. The world is difficult enough as it is. You shouldn't be mad at your team all the time, especially when your team is winning. And so in adopting that approach, I think I've backed off being highly critical of real issues when a team is 8-0 and ranked number 1. So it doesn't mean that Kyle McCord is playing great, that Kyle McCord is playing well enough, that he's not up for critiquing, that Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and anybody else involved with the offense aren't up for critiquing. But it's not what I'd lead with anymore. And maybe in the past I would have led with this is not the standard. This isn't good enough. Those two things have affected me. And it's not because I change shows. It's not because, I get mad when people are like, they're going to get their credentials revoked. It's like, for real? I get in fights with everybody. I get in fights with Ohio State people. I get in fights with non-Ohio State people. We're not backing down from anything. It's just how I honestly am thinking about it. But I also understand the idea that maybe people would view it as, you used to be much more critical and you're not anymore. Why? Right. But I think it's my evolution in trying to talk about this team in a way that serves the fans, because all I care about are our viewers and listeners and people who really care about Ohio State football. I don't care about anybody else. And to me right now, being highly critical of an undefeated number 1 team in the country does not feel to me like the thing that serves fans best. Being critical in areas where need be is still part of the job, but that's where I am. So I understand why people would maybe say, you didn't used to be like this, Doug. And I agree with that, but that's how I got here. How about you? What's your view of how you are thinking about this discussion?
I don't know. I think I've always tried to be pretty measured on everything when it comes to Ohio State. Try to check myself when I feel like I'm being hypercritical. Try to check myself when I feel like I'm getting over my skis a little bit with something being good. And I don't know. I feel like I've done that with Kyle McCord. At least I've tried to. Whether or not that comes off as being an apologist or telling fans they're wrong for their opinion, I don't intend that to be the case. And I also don't. There are extremes with everything, right? But I think by and large, the conversation around Kyle McCord has been mostly fair. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I approach it. I think maybe the Penn State game last year, right? I think you've mentioned that too, is like something kind of crystallized for me after that game. It's like, that was an awesome game. They won comfortably in the end. Like, why is everyone so upset? And that is in the back of my mind a little bit, because like I want to try to find a way to help people enjoy the team that they love as well. And maybe that means that I've pulled back on some criticism. I don't know that I've done it consciously, but maybe subconsciously I've done it because I have that in the back of my mind. But I try to be fair. I try to analyze things in a way that I think is fair and measured, and not on one extreme or the other. So that's how I've tried to approach this, and I feel like more or less I've done that.
And I will say, and it's what we started the show with, because my expectations for Kyle McCord were not as high, I'm more accepting of this level of play. And so I understand if your expectations were higher, if it's like, and to say like, listen, man, what are you talking about? It's a 5-star. Why would you not have high expectations for that? He's a 5-star plucked by Ryan Day. Could have gone after anybody in the country and he picked Kyle McCord. Like, why would you not have the highest expectations? I get that. This is Jamie. It's not fair to hold McCord to what CJ was in year 2, but is it unfair to have the expectation of CJ in year 1? McCord is a former 5-star and a junior and a third-year guy. I would have hoped he would have shown more poise from the pocket. McCord came to Ohio State understanding the expectations. He could have gone to Penn State, etc., if he wanted lower expectations. Why should the fan base be content with average play given the expectations and his 5-star status? I think that's right. I think that texter is right. But they might win a national title with average play. Like, it's like, right. Like that's, it is, he is supported by the fact that there are other people around him. If he didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson, and this defense, we would view him differently. Right?
Yeah, because they would have lost the game.
But he does have those people. So then I do take that into consideration. And like CJ did not have that. CJ did not have that in 2021, man. I mean, he had the receivers. He did not have that defense. And so it was more on him. But I understand, like, why would we be content with average? Ohio State fans shouldn't be content with average.
Yeah, and I don't think they should be content with average either. It's again, it's two separate like I think where they are right now could eventually be good enough to win them a national title. It certainly could not be. They could like all the things that I think people are concerned about can certainly lead to Ohio State losing a game it can't lose. Or that derails that goal. I just don't like, I don't ever want my analysis of the team that I cover to be just like, well, here's the 10 ways this could end up sucking for you. I know it's pretty good right now, but let's think about all the ways this could go bad and not talk about all the ways that things are good right now.
Yeah.
Like that's just, I don't know.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing that we have more good texter things, but that I thought about. So it's like everything in life. You really, you remember the stuff that stands out, obviously. So it's like, you think like, well, he's not Justin Fields. He's not CJ Stroud, right? He's not Dwayne Haskins, but those aren't the only quarterbacks that Ohio State has recruited in recent years. He's better than Jack Miller. He's better than Tate Martell. He's better than Matthew Baldwin. Like, they have had misses at quarterback. They went and got Jack Miller super early in that class, and then he got hurt, and then just like and then they were like, oh man, I hope this California guy that we haven't been paying attention to is interested, and they went and got CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really that Kyle McCord is at the bottom of Ohio State quarterbacks in this era. He's sort of at the bottom of starting quarterbacks, but he's in the middle of all quarterbacks, because if those three guys that I mentioned were starting right now, they'd be in much bigger trouble than they are right now, wouldn't they? And I do think that's worth keeping in mind. Like, if we did a list of, and we've done a lot of lists here, we didn't do a list of, let's rank every quarterback that signed with Ohio State in the last 10 years. But if we did, Kyle McCord wouldn't be at the bottom of that list. He'd be in the middle. We just forget about the guys at the bottom because they left. They never made it.
Right. Yeah, that I've actually been reminded of a point that I think maybe we discussed on the first quarterback podcast we did at the beginning of the year. And I said something to the effect of like, I trust Ryan Day's track record or something like that. Like I'll just believe Ohio State has subpar quarterback play when I see it because of how good Ryan Day has been with that position. And you checked me on that in the moment and sort of like laid out the guys that they prioritize and the guys that they're bringing in that were better than the guys they initially prioritized. So like, that has been in the back of my mind during this conversation of like, maybe it does. I don't know if it makes me question like Ryan Day's ability, but I think it's a good reminder that like, coach isn't going to hit a grand slam every time.
I do think like this level of Kyle McCord play, I think is at the bottom of the acceptable level. I don't think it's below the acceptable level. You know what I mean? Like it's at the bottom of the top group. I don't think it's in a separate group because again, he's not. If it was like in a different group, they wouldn't have beaten Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like I just think it's whatever the range. Like if it's Price is Right, right? Like you're doing this here, you have a slider, and it's like the range of acceptable quarterback play at Ohio State. I think this is barely in that range, but it still is. I don't think it's outside the realm of acceptable.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's someone else that says it's your fault, Landis. This is Ryan.
Oh, cool.
You guys shaped my expectations all offseason. You guys basically said Ryan Day recruits will play to the standard. Yeah. I hoped he would. That he is not playing to the standard is not pleasing, but not unexpected, except by you all experts. So, I mean, like we do. It's like one of those things. Sometimes it's like we'll do a show and like say the same thing. I have a habit of saying the same thing over and over again. And I'll say the same thing for 90 minutes. And then I'll send out a survey to the people who just listen to the show. And it's like, hey, what do you know? People's like, well, yeah, we're paid for this. We talk to people. This is our job. They're relying on us. So we did not sound the alarm. So then if you in your head are now sounding the alarm and you think to yourself, Landis and Doug didn't sound the alarm, I get that, right? I get that. Do you get that?
Yeah, I get that. That texter articulated the point that I was trying to make better than I did.
Yeah. Victim of expectations from Zach. McCord is a victim of expectations at Ohio State. He's not Justin or CJ, but he's still also above average in the Big Ten and probably the Power 5 for that matter. He's also a victim of this offensive line. Justin and CJ were always extremely well protected, and when they weren't, they were adept scramblers. Kyle is growing as a scrambler, but it's never going to be his strong suit, and this line making him fight for his life at times is not great. I think he's no worse than Cade McNamara was for Michigan in their playoff year, and I think that proves he can take Ohio State to a playoff, just like Cade McNamara did for Michigan on the back of a strong defense. So like we compared him to JJ last year. I think JJ McCarthy last year was a step up from Cade McNamara. I think he's better than Cade McNamara, but I think it's a point very, very, very well taken to me. But like, I don't, that was you better, if you're going to have Cade McNamara, you better have Aiden Hutchinson. Right.
Yeah. Right.
I do think the narrative around McCord is too negative right now. 4 years of Fields and Stroud, I think, has warped people's expectations of what college quarterback play looks like. He hasn't been great. He doesn't look like a first-round draft pick, but all that can be true while also saying he's been good enough, and there's no guarantee there's better quarterback play available anytime soon. That's from Tony. The word spoiled came up a lot, Landis, in this discussion, that people are saying what the quarterback level has been the last 4 years has made Ohio State fans think a certain way. This is our guy, Nate. We have been spoiled over many years of exceptional quarterbacks. While Kyle's progress is not tracking at the same pace as the past 3 quarterbacks at this point in his career, he's not light years removed from them. This is, all in all, Kyle McCord is a fine quarterback. The problem is we have been spoiled the past few years with phenomenal quarterbacks. Fans just need to recalibrate their expectations. All I can hear in my head is Doug's impersonation, but maybe it's just time to accept that we have a Stetson Bennett. But last I checked, that's good enough to win a natty. That's from Andrew. Did you? He's going to. Once again, I have been referenced on this Yankee show. I did not grant permission for my name to be besmirched by being used with a quarterback no better than average when I am a 2-time national champion. How dare you, Kings of Columbus, if I dare use the word kings in such a manner. Mr. Landis, can you answer for your co-host of why my name is repeatedly used on this subpar show?
Well, Stetson, he has this impression that he likes to do, and to get there, he just kind of likes to work your name into conversations whenever possible. So that's why.
Tell your friend that he will be hearing from my attorney in short order. So here's the other thing, is I do a foghorn leghorn impersonation of a 2-time national champion quarterback. And for a decade, I called every Wisconsin quarterback a noodle arm. So That's not far from poop emoji. Like when you get and this, I don't mean to be like a homer here, but like I'm removed from that, right? Like you're not around. It's like, I don't know. If somebody was like, well, you called him a noodle arm. Isn't that negative? It's like, yeah, it is. But I don't know them. This is your team. So even though like we're doing a regional show now, like we're going to be talking about more teams. It's not like it's not right in front of you. So I don't know. If Devin Brown, if it turns out that Lincoln Keenholz talks with a Southern accent, I don't think I'm going to be like, I'm a Lincoln Keenholz from South. I don't think I do that because like he's right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you're allowed to be more negative. The more removed you are, the more negative you can be. But when Ohio State fans are like, my guy is poop emoji, I'm like, well, is that productive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just people being honest. You know what I mean? They're just saying what they think.
No, I know.
Can't fault them for that.
That's right. It's your guy. It's right in front of like if fans can think it's more about like the media. Like fans can think whatever you think. When you are paying for it, you are paying for the right to think whatever you want. When you are getting paid, it doesn't mean that you should be a homer, but I think you should be like reasoned in your approach a little bit, right? You should serve fans, and that can be emotional. And that can be having takes. I mean, we have takes, but I do think it's kind of a different deal. This is Zach. I think the narrative that he is bad is way off base from some. Advanced stats from collegefootballnerds.com have him ranked 10th nationally. That is ahead of guys like Bo Nix, Drake May, Sam Hartman, and Jordan Travis. He is good enough for this Ohio State team to win it all this season. It's crazy to expect a guy in his first season with this O-line to have results like CJ or Fields. So this spoiled argument, right? McCord is in such a tough spot. This is Greg. It's our guy, Greg C74. Haskins to Fields to CJ. Sheesh. We are super spoiled. Someone on the pod mentioned, what if CJ had come back this year? It stopped me in my tracks. I guess what if this year's D was on last year's team is the same thing. So like that idea, is that helpful to remind fans of like, it's been a great run. It's not always like this, you know, like is that just the standard? Is it spoiled or standard?
I like standard more than I don't like spoiled. This feels like inherently negative to me. And I don't think it's wrong for fans to hold the team they like, especially a team as successful as Ohio State, to a high standard. So I wouldn't want to label them as spoiled. So yeah, I think standard is right, but standards aren't always met. And I think it's fair to call it out when it's not being met. But I also don't think that coming up short of whatever the standard is for a given position or a given team automatically means you're not going to do what you want to do this year. I think is where I'm at.
This is Jared and Van Wert. McCord is 100% the victim of recency bias. He's not as good as CJ or Justin, but he isn't much worse than Dwayne. Dwayne was running a different offense, Mesh Mania, and fans were enamored with an offense that could throw it all. McCord is light years ahead of JT Barrett as a passer and is every bit as good as Stetson Bennett. I think McCord can get moderately better as the season goes on, but a moderately better McCord is playing good enough to win the national championship with this defense and the weapons around him. If something holds this team back, it's probably going to be the offensive line. I have more. There were literally hundreds. I grabbed like 70, and I can't even read all the ones I grabbed, Landis. But I do think, have we discussed the discussion in a way that you think is satisfactory?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's been. I'm really thankful that everyone sent in, their thoughts and opinions on this because it helps to the point of like, how should we be talking about it? I think hearing from people and how they truly feel about it helps us frame those thoughts in our mind. So yeah, I think it's been productive.
Last one from Justin. I'm pretty stunned at the way people are talking about McCord as if he's Bowser Bombs or something. He's not great, may never be, but his floor is pretty darn good and he's only going to get better. You miss in recruiting sometimes. He isn't a total whiff. This happens everywhere. We are so incredibly spoiled that I get revolted by my own friends and family sometimes. These guys aren't robots. So again, there's some line of like, it's great to have expectations. Ryan Day talks about it. Ryan Day knows it. Everybody knows it. They know 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 it. But they are 8-0. They are number one. If he was truly terrible, he would not have made the 3rd and 19th throw, and there's a lot of people around him playing at a very, very, very high level to support him. So when we come back, we're going to brush ever so slightly on 2024 because do think it's worth having a 5-minute discussion about. Next on Kings of Columbus. All right, there's nothing more that sports fans like than the future. I love the future too. It's why people like recruiting. It's why people like the NFL draft. So in the midst of all of this, people are wondering about the quarterback situation next year. This is from Evan in Oregon. Do you think Day will hit the transfer portal in the offseason for a quarterback? We all agree that McCord isn't at the Ohio State standard, even if he doesn't need to be this season. So shouldn't Day go get the standard? This is another one about next year. This is Jack. I know midseason isn't the right time for this, but what has continued to come up for me is what does this mean for the future of Kyle in the offense? I came in expecting Kyle to be one and done and moving on, and then on to Devin Brown next year. Now I think Kyle has to come back, right? And if so, should I be excited about it? What happens when he doesn't have Marv? Like Jack has all these questions about next year. And then this is Eric. In a perfect world, he plays lights out and goes pro, and it's a competition again next year. But if he stays, it's hard to imagine he loses his job. I think part of the uproar against him is knowing we have more, quote, upside guys here and coming in with Lincoln Keenholz and Aaron Noland that could be set back a year to sit behind mediocrity. Don't be Georgia with Jake Fromm and lose a Justin Fields and not win a title. So that's everybody asking about 2024. My guess is this. I think there might be a competition in the spring, and I think this is where the Cade McNamara comparison might come in. Cade McNamara led Michigan to the playoff and then got beat out by J.J. McCarthy the next year. So I, at the moment, I'm not expecting Kyle McCord to go pro, but I also do not think that absolutely guarantees he's the starter at Ohio State in 2024 if he comes back, because Devin Brown with another year of experience, if he cleans up his turnovers, like he took it into the season this year, I would imagine it could be the same next year. Now, the thing next year is maybe both of them would demand an answer at the end of spring football, like it was with Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow in 2018. But that's how I'm viewing 2024. How are you viewing it, Landis?
Similarly, I didn't have the Cade McNamara thing in my mind, but I think that's a good way to compare it. If we're to believe Ryan Day and how close it was coming out of this offseason, I have no reason to believe it won't be close coming out of next season, unless like Kyle in this next month just takes like a tremendous step forward. I think there is going to be, I don't know if Ryan Day will label it as a competition publicly, but I think their possibility would be there that someone can win that job in the spring and carry it into the summer, and you have a talented athletic kid in Lincoln Keenholz, who people in the Woody seem pretty high on. And I don't know, like Aaron Noland is a true freshman. I don't know how much he actually factors into that, but certainly he could. He's a good, athletic, winning high school quarterback. Has the recruiting pedigree you expect an Ohio State quarterback to have. So I guess I would say, like, I feel like everything's on the table going into 2024. I don't think it's cut and dry that Kyle is, if this version of Kyle is the version of Kyle we see for the rest of the year, that he's definitely going to be the starter next year. I think there are opportunities for other guys to make that a more interesting conversation.
Yeah, if he's coming back from a championship parade, it's like, okay, well, like that's difficult, right? Because like Cade McNamara got him to the playoff, and then you looked at Michigan and thought, man, if they had a little more of a playmaker at quarterback, they might make the next step. Todd Beckman led Ohio State to the national championship game and then lost his job the next year by week 4. Now they didn't win it though, right? So, if Kyle goes nuts in November and hoists a trophy, then the conversation changes. But also, like, next year's room potentially could be the perfect Ryan Day room. Year 4, Kyle McCord. Year 3, Devin Brown. Year 2, Lincoln Keenholz. Year 1, Aaron Noland. Like, he wants 4 quarterbacks. Those are 4 guys they like, 4 guys they picked. Like, that's a perfect room, which also means it probably won't stay that way.
Yeah,
right?
I would not bet on that room looking like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's now. Albin is also asking about a portal stuff. McCord is nowhere near good enough. He seems significantly behind in his development compared to the last 3 Ohio State starters. I'm not ready to give up, but if he doesn't improve significantly through the rest of this season, Ohio State won't make the playoff, and Ryan Day should look for a talented, experienced quarterback in the portal. We talked about that idea generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does Ohio State want to be that type of program? But there is a way of, like, I don't know if Notre Dame wants to be that type of program, but they were in a specific situation with Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner as the guys coming back. They were like, well, I don't know. And Sam Hartman's like a 1-year thing. He's super experienced. They went there for that. I don't know if that means Notre Dame's going to have a portal quarterback all the time.
They got CJ Carr coming in.
Yeah, but not as a philosophy, but as a one-time thing, could you imagine poking around at all? I'll try. You talk. I'll try to think of the guy that if this guy was available.
Yeah, that would be good information to have. I guess I would say if this kind of play persists and ultimately we all come to the conclusion that Ohio State didn't get where it needs to go because of the quarterback play, then I think you could get there. Because I don't think you worry so much about Lincoln Kienholz in that scenario. I think you can massage that, but Lincoln, we really like you. We think you need one more year of development. We're going to bring in a guy who's going to start for 1 year as a transfer ahead of you, but you're still the future. Same thing with Aaron Noland. You would have to be willing to lose Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, I would think. But if you think that the quarterback play this year wasn't good enough, you're not super optimistic that next year it's going to be good enough. The two guys at the top of that depth chart are two guys who you kind of view as the same. Then I think that could lead you down that path. Yeah.
All right. You want a name? I'll give you two names.
Give me two names.
All right. First one is programs falling apart. Brought in the new offensive coordinator. That didn't work. I am not being given the resources and the talent to succeed at the highest level, even though I was the number one quarterback recruit in my class. I have a year as a starter under my belt at a big-time program, and I'm ready to go to a place that's more settled. I'm Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik, and I'm interested in Ohio State.
Maybe. Yeah. Interesting.
I gave a whole speech, and you gave me a maybe. I was like, open the door. It's Cade Klubnik. You're like, meh.
Yeah, I worry about the Clemson stank on that one. They don't develop quarterback well.
All right, let me give you another one. I am a 2-year starter at a team that competed at the highest level of the SEC. We were ranked in the top 15 in 2023. In 2024, it would be my third year as a starter. And although I like my current program, I just want to elevate to the next tier and learn quarterback play from Ryan Day. I am Missouri's Brady Cook. Who, by the way, Missouri's going to beat Georgia on Saturday. So take that into your account.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, it's another maybe for me. It's not a slam dunk.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sam, I'm trying to figure out, because even Bo Nix and Michael Penix and stuff, they're in year 2 at their programs right now. You know what I mean? Michael Penix was good last year. Actually, he was really good last year. I don't know. So anyway, I don't think that's where they would go. But if we're going to play the game, you kind of I don't know. But that's the point. Notre Dame's the example. They had Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner, who they had played them both. Especially Buckner was a pretty highly rated recruit. And they both left because they went with Sam Hartman. So you're wiping out the top guys. And then you say, we're going to go from a 1-year starter in 2024 to then Kienholz and Noland. So I don't think that's how they would be thinking about it, because I think even if you're not sure about Kyle McCord, and who knows, maybe they will be sure about Kyle McCord, but I think it's Devin Brown's your transfer. Devin Brown's the portal. And I think Devin Brown is better probably than anybody that you could come up with.
Yeah. What about we probably shouldn't be having this conversation, but it is kind of fun. The Justin Fields, 5-star, incredible prospect, didn't work out at the first stop. And it's a little different because this guy did play and now is not playing. Dante Moore.
Oh, who's the true freshman at UCLA that they started and now he's not playing right now. But now if you start bringing in a guy like that, because when Justin Fields got here, he wiped out Tate Martell, he wiped out Emory Jones,
the room blew up. Yeah,
he wiped out Dwan Mathis. So if you bring in a 1-year guy, you're wiping out McCord and Brown, but you're keeping Kienholz and Noland. If you bring in a guy like that, you're wiping out some of the young guys too.
Yeah, you're going to try to find yourself a chugging off.
Yeah, so I would say definitely no on that, because I think they'd take their chances with Lincoln Kienholz and Aaron Noland. Aaron Noland, man, come on, right? And I know we're just playing a game. It's kind of a fun game. But a 1 year, 1 year only, let's go win a national championship. I still think it's a no, but I think it's more feasible.
Yeah. I also don't know. They probably they're going to lose Marv and Emeka. They're going to lose a lot off of this defense. I don't know that they would. I don't know if they view their roster as a quarterback away from
Yeah.
winning a national title.
Right. So then you'd rather grow with guys.
Then let's have the whole group grow together. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We kind of just have like some random leftover stuff. They're like the belief, like this is a Ryan Day thing. This is Matt. My context for what it's worth as a fan that has watched every one of these recent quarterbacks play is McCord has an almost impossible bar to clear. It's not easy being QB1 at Ohio State, especially when the three before him all had incredible ability to spin and distribute the ball to all the wide receivers they played with. McCord also doesn't appear to have the heart that JT Barrett had. I can't judge heart, of course, but JT would run and keep on zone read 15 times a game and found a way to win. Kyle is his own guy. He seems stoic, which doesn't help his public perception when he's not throwing 3 touchdowns a game. And Ryan Day picked him. Coach has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. So I just hope and pray Kyle can give this team a chance to beat Michigan. Losing to Michigan this year may be the toughest loss of my lifetime. So much is on that game and on Kyle, so in this fan's eyes. So kind of like fingers crossed there from Matt. And then like another way of like looking at this, let's see this one. This is Jamie. I think I'd rather have this hope in McCord improving because of Day than clinging on to the hope of the defense improving like in previous years. So maybe this style will work. I'm also biased because I'm from Philly and I really like McCord, but I would say the same if it was Brown or somebody else out there. Day knows quarterbacks, hopefully something that can click. I do think that's interesting about this team that, again, I think we've talked about a lot. Are they a defense first team, but it's still an offense first coach?
Yeah.
And so the belief of, okay, the thing that's not working as well is the thing that the boss is an expert in is a different place to be.
That's actually a good perspective that I hadn't considered. Like, if that inspires a little bit of confidence, I think that would make sense to me. Again, I guess like a rebuttal to that would be like, does Ryan Day have the time to be as hands-on with that position as he needs to be to take that step forward? And if not, are they otherwise structured in a way to bring that out of Kyle McCord? I don't know.
All right. You good on quarterbacks? Can we talk about apples?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Woo! Is that enough? Is that good? Is that bad? Was that helpful?
Felt like a lot, but hopefully it was helpful. Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. I do sometimes it's like, I had a 2-hour class on Wednesday. What class are you taking? Kings of Columbus. What's your grade?
We grade on a curve, so it's fine.
Taking a pass fail.
Yeah.
Thank God. How's your professor? He will not shut up.
He was talking like Foghorn Leghorn.
All right, we come back. What you watching? What you eating? What you thinking on Kings of Columbus? All right, Bill Landis, what are you watching?
I saw Killers of the Flower Moon. You saw it too? Yeah.
Find it to be punishing?
It was long. Yeah. It was good. It was really well acted. Like, it was more or less what I expected. It didn't need to be as long as it is. I also found some of the cameos a bit distracting. It was similar to Oppenheimer. I found that, like, I don't know, like, you're not a country music fan, right? So, like,
correct.
Like Bill Smith, the guy who was married to one sister that married the other sister.
Yeah.
That's Jason Isbell.
It is?
Yeah.
I don't know I know Jason Isbell's name. I would have no idea what he looks like.
And like the Moonshine guy.
Yeah.
That's Sturgill Simpson.
Okay.
And like at the end when they're doing the thing that was weird.
Yeah.
One of the voice actors is Jack White.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun. That I know, right?
Yeah. But then also like Brendan Fraser shows up like for the last 10 minutes. It's like, where did that come from? Yeah.
Brendan Fraser like rolled right over from the set of The Whale, right?
And just decided he was going to chew up all the scenery that was available to him. Yeah.
It's like, what is that happening? I also saw it, like, it was good. I didn't think it was spectacular. I think Oppenheimer was better. I think Barbie was better. Like, it was fine.
Yeah,
so I want to talk about, this is a philosophical thing, but I rewatched Designated Survivor on Netflix, which was on like in 2017, 2018, 2019.
Excellent first season, that show.
Yeah. So I watched like the first 2 episodes, like when it came on, and then I gave up. So then I restarted it. So it's a show that was on ABC for the first 2 seasons. And the 3rd season, Netflix picked it up. And in the 3rd season, so it's like a network show that's on now, then Netflix shows it. Then year 3, it's a Netflix show. So in year 3, they show butt cracks and they drop F-bombs.
Oh.
And it's like, I'm not sure how that butt crack or that F-bomb enhanced the show. And it made me realize that I do like sort of like the network, like sheen of things sometimes, that I think that we think that F-bombs and butt cracks signify like a better quality of show. It's like, well, I mean, can you really make a great show without a butt crack?
Yeah.
Like, is that where America is right now? Like Game of Thrones, right? Or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Did they butt cracks on The Sopranos? They probably did. So
they sure did. Yeah.
But really, it's a signifier. It's that like, okay, there maybe reached a point where it's like, I don't know, where network shows kind of cheesy. And then like shows like this that are on streaming or on HBO or whatever are more real, are better quality shows. So I like better quality, but I don't need butt cracks. So that's what I want this show to be. I want us to be the quality of like like prestige. This is prestige podcasting. But I want us to have the veneer. I want us to have the shiny lights of network TV. So I want us to be like high quality thought. No butt cracks, no F-bombs. You good with that?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. What do you make of like, it always interested me, and I guess it's like a network thing versus a cable, like a traditional network thing versus a cable channel thing, but like FX like always push the boundaries with that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you'll see a butt on the Americans, but you would never see that on ABC.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah.
I don't know.
It's weird. It's weird with and like you can say certain profanities, I think, on like USA. Like I was watching wrestling, and then a show came on after wrestling, and like within the first 5 minutes, a guy dropped an F-bomb, and I was like, "What do I watch? This is on the USA Network? You can do that?"
Because like I think we reached the point where now we think if you say the F word, that's a good show. Like that signifies quality, and I think that exists in podcasting too, right? There's definitely F-bomb shows, but I want us to be the quality of that without the F-bombs.
Yeah, we would curse on 4 to 6. Yeah, it was very liberating.
Yeah. But was it better? Was it a better show?
It was.
Don't say yes. Don't.
No. The information. It was good information either way. The delivery was just different. Yeah.
Oh man, you want us to use F-bombs? Okay. Well, we'll have to have a discussion about this.
It would be easier for me if we could curse on our channel, because I do it a lot when I have to actively not swear.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. What you eating? I'm eating some freaking pizza, man.
Yeah. I did have pizza last night for dinner. I hit a new breakfast spot in Columbus, Maple Street Biscuit Company.
We drove past it the other day, and my wife was like, "How come you haven't gone to Maple Street Bacon Company?" And I was like, "I've never heard of it before." She's like, "We've had a conversation about this." And then I looked at the menu, and I was like, "Why didn't you tell me?"
We were there on Saturday. Maybe was it the day you drove by? And we were at the one up Polaris, which is probably the one you drove by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How good was it?
It was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. Well, their iced coffee is like inherently maple flavored, which I didn't love because I don't actually like maple flavored. I like maple syrup, but I don't like much of maple anything else. But the food was good. The biscuits were tremendous. I got a biscuits and gravy thing with like bacon and eggs on it. Yeah, it was good.
I'm going.
Tasty. Yeah.
I like a biscuit-based breakfast place.
Yeah. And we don't down south. It's like everywhere is biscuit based, but I think we need to embrace the biscuit more up here. Yeah,
no, that could be one of our things on Kings of the North.
Yeah,
the South can cram it, but embrace the biscuit.
We're stealing your biscuits.
Yeah. So do you like to work at coffee shops? Like,
yes, very much so. Yeah.
So you can't podcast at coffee shop.
You're right. Yeah.
That would be.
Well, you can, but you get kicked out. Yeah.
So do you know if there are rules about podcasting? Like about like what you can do on a podcast, like maybe like with TV, or can you just do anything you want on YouTube?
You can't do. I don't think you can do nudity on YouTube, but otherwise, I think you're okay.
Oh, so the whole butt crack thing wouldn't work anyway. Okay, so here's the 3 things that I actually think I might want to do on this show eventually. So I've never been high, and like if they legalize it, like aren't we voting on that?
Yeah, I think
voting on that in Ohio, right?
Yeah,
I'd like to do a show high. I think it'd be fun for people.
I've got some edibles right here. If you want some, we can.
Yeah. No, I've never had them. Yeah. I've never had anything in any form. Do a show drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to do a show drunk?
Well, I've got edibles this way and I got beer this way. Which one do you want?
This is like, can we start this in 5 minutes? And then I would like to do a show hypnotized or be hypnotized on the show.
Oh, I was thinking of that. We went to the state fair and there was like a hypnotist and he like brought people on stage and was doing stuff. And I was like, would I want to do that? Like, and like, I think I would, but it also terrifies me.
No, I am tremendous at being hypnotized.
You've been hypnotized
twice and I'm great at it. 3 times. And I would wind up being like the star of the show every time because I'm so feeble-minded and open to being led by others.
It's real. Like,
it's real. I said it's like being drunk. Like it's you know what you're doing, but in the moment it seems normal to be doing it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you forget it, but like you do stuff when you're drunk. It's like, why did I do that? It's like, well, it made sense at the time. So it's kind of like that. So would you think we should plan on doing shows drunk, high, and hypnotized?
All 3 at one time? Probably
no. 3 separate shows.
Yeah.
It'll be a week. Okay.
I mean, I'm on board with
North.
I'm on board with 2 of the 3, no doubt. The hypnotizing, you have to, talk me up.
I think it'd be fun to watch you be really fearful of being hypnotized and then get hypnotized.
Getting hypnotized, yeah. I need to be hypnotized to be able to be hypnotized.
All right, if you're a hypnotist, contact us. So, my thing's about coffee shop.
Yeah.
So, I like it's like so. But I used to, like, pre-pandemic, I used to go work at coffee shops a lot. Like now that we mostly do shows, it's harder to do. I don't write. You still write for Rivals. I don't write anymore. But when I'm like organizing things and I need to plan some stuff out, I want to start going to coffee shops again. But after interviews on Tuesday, I wanted to go to a coffee shop, but I was conflicted because I had gone to one the other day and done it. And I got it was a local coffee shop and it was cool and had a cool vibe, but I got like one coffee, which was $4.50 or whatever. And then I drank it and I was done. I just sat there like a chump. But at Panera, they have free refills.
Oh.
On soda and iced tea and on coffee. And you just get one cup.
Things. You know the thing with their charged lemonade at Panera?
No, what is it?
It's like high? No, but it's like I think it has like as much caffeine as like 6 shots of espresso. Oh my God. Which like they didn't bother to tell anybody when they first put it out. But I remember when it first came out, I was there and I was like, oh, this is good. And I ended up having like 4 of them.
Oh my God.
And now they don't put them out for free refills because if you have too many, you'll die.
Oh, was your heart racing?
I felt a little weird and I didn't know why.
Oh.
Now I know why.
So my conflict was, do I want to go to the chain coffee shop where I saw the Dispatch's Joey Kaufman, which is where I did go.
Oh, nice.
And get the free refills, or do I want to look for cool local coffee shops to go to and just realize you're just going to get 1 cup of coffee and that's it? Because I do love free refills. What should I do? I would rather go to the local coffee shop and support local business, but they don't have free refills.
Yeah, well, I think most places will like charge you $1 for a refill. Like they don't. Yeah, not the full freight to get a refill of coffee. Like they're still making the coffee. They're still buying the coffee and then making the coffee. So like I think they should be paid for it. But yeah, I think a lot of places will do a discounted refill. Yeah.
But that's like, I feel like that's everything. It's like convenience versus real local flavor.
The conglomerate can give away free Coca-Cola because to them it's a line item. It's not, but the coffee shop, it's all they do.
I'm a conglomerate sucker, aren't I?
Yeah.
Conglomerates are like that guy.
Yeah.
Although now that I'm 50, I've aged out of the group that anybody cares about. When you're 50, people don't care about you anymore.
Oh, so, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah. That's one of those things. Someday it'll happen to you. All right. What are you thinking about? Other than the fact that someday you will age out of the bracket where people care about you.
Yeah. I didn't have a good one for thinking, to be honest.
I have 2.
Yeah.
I was
thinking, I don't want to have a weather conversation, but like I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed by it was like 60 degrees 2 days ago, and then it snowed on Halloween.
You should move.
Yeah.
I mean, this is life in the Midwest.
It didn't used to be like this.
Well, it's been so nice. Like that's the thing. It's definitely snowed on Halloween before, but it didn't. I feel like it didn't used to be 60 the day before in late October.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
We don't have to talk about the weather. What do you got?
So one is I was just thinking about like Caleb Williams and Michael Penix and Bo Nix existing, and that if they were already in the Big Ten right now, because none of them are going to be next year, they're all going to be gone when Washington, Oregon, and USC get here. Would they be the three best non-Ohio State quarterbacks in the Big Ten in the last 20 years if they were here now? Like that's, by the way, what Big Ten fans can look forward to.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was also thinking about this. My family is mad, like in our text chain, because I love to put GIFs in the text chain.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife says she's going to start fining me every time I do it. But why would I respond with actual words to my family and say thanks when I could like look for, I don't know, JB Smooth saying thanks in a GIF?
Right.
Like I'd rather do that. I think it's cool. Is it? Do people put like not on Twitter?
So you like if someone says like, "Hey Doug, don't bother going to the grocery store today. I already did that. You don't have to go now." And instead of saying like, "Okay, thanks," you find the GIF to respond to that.
Yes.
Okay, I get how that would be annoying.
No, but isn't it cool and funny? And it's like, look, it's Amy Poehler. Ha 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 ha. Brighten my day. No,
not if it's all the time.
It's not all the time. It's like 4 times a day.
Okay, because I like a good GIF too, but I like to be strategic with my GIFs.
No, I don't. I can't get enough of them. It's famous people saying words for you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a long show. It's a lot of quarterback talk. I hope we were helpful, not hurtful. I hope we're illuminating and we didn't confuse you even more. And I just hope that as an Ohio State fan, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of Columbus.